So good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to the January 24th, 2023 meeting of the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I'd like to ask Pastor Dana Robinson to come forward and give us an invocation, please.
Before I pray, I just want to take a moment to thank you on behalf of Chesapeake Church and End Hunger in Calvert County for your ongoing support for End Hunger in the warehouse that we are building. The need continues to rise to End Hunger in our area, in our community, and I thank you for your ongoing support. The need is rising, and we're going to keep fighting, so thank you for that. Let's pray. Dear Father God, we thank you for waking us up this morning, which means that you're not done with us yet. And let's just take a moment to be grateful for that. Lord, I pray that each day that you give us, that you lead us with purpose, and that that purpose is not only fulfilling to our lives, but we use it to serve others, Lord. Lord, I pray for our families and especially for our children. May you keep them safe, and may they be allowed to grow into healthy, confident adults, Lord, and help us lead them there. Lord, we thank you. Thank you for all your blessings. Lord, we pray for those that are struggling, those that are in need, whether it's physically, emotionally, financially, Lord. May we always look to serve others. May we put others before ourselves and love others with mercy and kindness. And lastly, I pray for the commissioners as they go into this meeting, Lord. May you guide them with your wisdom and your guidance. We trust that wisdom. We trust that guidance, Lord. And may they lead with confidence in your wisdom. We are grateful for them. We are thankful for all of your blessings, Lord. And we ask for a special blessing on this meeting. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I want to thank Pastor Robinson for giving us an invocation, and just to let everybody know, at the Martin Luther King event at Bethel Way Church, she did an excellent job singing that day, and I asked her to sing the prayer, but
I know, maybe next time.
Next time. Thank you. Have a great day. So the next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda as presented? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. First item on the agenda is public service announcements. I do have two, unfortunately. We want to send our condolences to the Bobby Fenn family. Bob was a very active member of the Advanced Life Support Unit in Calvert County, helped get that up and going, and so we want to send our condolences to his family and thank them for his service to our county. Also, Claude David Goins, who was the grandfather of our employee Barbara Warner. Mr. Goins served in the U.S. Navy during World War II and was actually at the Battle of Normandy, or D-Day, on June 6, 1944. So I want to make sure their families get our deepest sympathy. That's all I have. And that takes us to the first item on the agenda, which is a ceremony to swear in a new deputy. Sheriff?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Morning.
Morning. How you doing?
Morning. Good.
Before we get started, I just want to say thanks again for taking care of our senior deputy, James Flint, home recovering. I want to say thank you again. It's been a very strong effort through our community and the commissioners. We thank you for the support. And alongside, I've been working with Director Ms. Melanie Woodson, trying to get his paperwork in line. We're taking care of him. I just want the public to know that. Before we have Zachary Gadwell. Can you please come forward? I want to thank my staff for being here this morning, too. This is a very proud moment for us here at the Sheriff's Office. Deputy Gadwell has completed a 31-week academy course in Angelo, Maryland, our Tri-County Academy. I've been told that he's at the top of his class, so he's put the work in, and now he's become a deputy, and the swearing-in ceremony is a very proud moment for him and his family that is here with us today. And we're gonna carry the tradition on. His uncle is Nick DeFelice, so he's gonna do the actual pinning ceremony for him, and we're gonna carry that on. And we just want to say thank you, and I want to do this as your sheriff and continue this. So we'll go ahead and come up front, and Ms. Kathy Smith here. All right.
Repeat after me. Start by saying your name. I state your name.
I, Zachary Gabriel,
Do promise or declare
do promise or declare
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will be faithful
and that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland
and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution
and support the Constitution
and laws thereof,
and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of Deputy Sheriff of Calvert County
execute the office of Deputy Sheriff of Calvert County
according to the Constitution
according to the Constitution
and laws of the state,
and laws of the state,
and that I will not,
and that I will not,
for lucre or malice,
for lucre or malice,
delay any person
delay any person
applying to me
applying to me
for any business
for any business
belonging to the office
belonging to the office
I officiate in,
I officiate in,
and that I will not directly or indirectly
and that I will not directly or indirectly
ask, take, exact, demand,
ask, take, exact, demand,
receive from, or charge to
receive from, or charge to
any such person
any such person
to my own use
to my own use
any fee or reward whatsoever
any fee or reward whatsoever
for any services that I may do
for any services that I may do
as deputy of said office,
as deputy of said office,
and in making out the office fees,
and in making out the office fees,
I will not wittingly or willingly
I will not wittingly or willingly
charge other or higher fees
charge other or higher fees
than are allowed by law.
than are allowed by law.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Outstanding doing that solo.
That's a
No
mouthful.
pressure at all.
So Commissioner Zachary Gadwell graduated from Salisbury University, played football there, so I heard he's pretty good, so.
Your starting team.
What position you play?
My receiver.
What'd you run? What'd you 40?
Really tight end.
A little more bump size.
Good job.
Photos.
Congratulations.
So they graduate this Friday at Chopticon High School. If anybody's available, you're welcome to come to it.
Congratulations.
So you have family you want to bring up for a picture? Anybody want?
Family, want to come forward, staff?
Bring them all.
Anybody? Come on, we'll make room for you.
You're welcome.
Can I?
I'm so interested about the sporting time.
Yeah.
Are you joining up here too?
All right, Kevin, do you need to take charge?
Yeah, just make sure. One more.
One more.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good luck, Absolutely, anytime. So the next item on the agenda is a presentation by the Calvert County Board of Education Blueprint Update. And we do have members of the Blueprint Committee. Well, Dr. Joe Sampson and Mr. Mark Willis are at the table. We have Pamela Cousins, who is joining us virtually. We have Melissa Goshorn, who's in attendance. We have Donna Estenzo, who is also virtual. We have Wilson Perrin, who's in the audience. Michael Schisler, who's here with us today. Stacy Taman, Ruthie Buckler, Tony Navarro, and John Norris. Thank you all for joining us today and for your work. Mr. Willis.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Willis, County Administrator. It's certainly my privilege and honor to be the co-chair with Dr. Joe Sampson, who I've never been afraid to say that other folks might be the brains of the outfit, and certainly Dr. Joe Sampson is that for us on this Blueprint Committee. Just the work that he and his staff, along with our committee, he's done a lot behind the scenes. Our committee is getting more involved, and with that, a little bit about what we're here for. The Calvert County Blueprint Committee was created by Joint Resolution 41-22 on October 5th, 2021, to serve in an advisory capacity to both the Board of County Commissioners and the Calvert County Board of Education, covering policies and initiatives to be included in the Blueprint Implementation Plan. Discussion is basically, as co-chairs, Dr. Joe Sampson and I will present an update with a PowerPoint presentation as we go forward. It's recommended that you allow time on this particular meeting. What we would like to do is go through the briefing itself. It's certainly your privilege to ask questions as we go. If we can wait towards the end, we might be able to bring them all out at the same time. I would like to also offer that any committee members introduce themselves a little bit better and what part of the committee they came from, meaning that some are appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, some are for the Board of Education, and we did that for a reason. We, meaning the Board of Ed and the Board of County Commissioners, did that so that we have as broad a group as possible representing our combined efforts going forward. And on our behalf, I couldn't ask for better coordination with Dr. Sampson and myself. So I think we're going to continue that going forward for sure. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Sampson, and we'll go ahead and go through the presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us. So today we're going to give a brief overview of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, its goals, and where Calvert County Public Schools currently stands with regard to our implementation. So as you may know, the Blueprint legislation came about as a result of the work done by the Maryland Commission of Innovation and Excellence in Education, which is also known as the Curran Commission. The commission studied highly successful school systems across the world to determine what needs to be done about education in Maryland. When the commission completed its work in 2019, House Bill 1300 was introduced during the 2020 legislative session. The Maryland General Assembly approved the legislation. However, the governor later vetoed the proposed bill. During the 2021 legislative session, the General Assembly overrode the governor's earlier veto, and House Bill 13 was passed into law. During the 2021 legislative session, House Bill 1372 was also introduced as a sister legislation to House Bill 1300. Its purpose was to amend the timelines originally proposed in House Bill 1300 and add a specific language addressing student learning loss during COVID. So there's two primary goals of the Blueprint. The first is to transform Maryland's early childhood, primary, and secondary education systems to levels of high-performing systems around the world. These efforts will aim to improve educator compensation across the state, and the second goal is to establish a career ladder system for educators by July 1st, 2024, composed of levels throughout which teachers may progress and gain certain authority, status, and compensation as they gain expertise in their field. The latter is a work that will be negotiated in the near future, but the career ladder will have 4 levels, which consist of state certified teacher, teacher pursuing master's degree, 30 credits, or MBC. Level 3 would be teacher with MBC or teachers with master's degree in their subject area if there is no MBC or national board certification. and/or an assistant principal with an advanced professional certificate for administration. Level 4 would be a teacher on the teacher leadership track, or a teacher on the administrator track, or a licensed principal or a distinguished principal. So the next piece is the Accountability and Implementation Board, which is the governing body for the Blueprint's work, and it's an independent unit of the Maryland state government created by the Blueprint for Maryland's Future law. They're responsible for oversight and evaluation of the Blueprint. Final authority rests with the AIB in the case of conflicts between policy and other entities, and all meetings, agendas, and resources are posted on the AIB's website, which I will cite at the end of this presentation. So as Mr. Willis mentioned before, with our Calvert County Blueprint Committee, we also have our steering committee. The structure of our work on the Blueprint starts with that steering committee made up of CCPS staff who oversee the writing of the implementation plan. The steering committee members chair subcommittee work groups inclusive of additional central office and school-based personnel. And our steering committee receives feedback from other various stakeholder groups to inform the writing process of that implementation plan. And we partner with the Calvert County Blueprint Committee, as stated before, and they work with us in an advisory capacity to inform our writing and our implementation. The Blueprint is broken into 5 policy areas, which are also known as pillars, and they are early childhood education, high quality and diverse teachers and leaders, college and career readiness, more resources so all students are successful, and governance and accountability. Now I'll give a brief overview of the 5 pillars. Pillar 1 focuses on high quality early education and care for students, and specifically the expansion of full-day pre-K. The Blueprint requires that school districts expand full-day pre-K at no cost to low-income families and would take place over the course of several years, starting with 4-year-old students. The Blueprint uses a tiered system to determine eligibility for pre-K students, and most of our programs in CCPS currently are half-day. The current half-day programs will move to full-day as we transition to meet Blueprint requirements. Blueprint also requires public funding for public and private provider pre-K programs. We are currently working with Head Start to expand the number of pre-K programs for the upcoming school year, pre-K slots for the upcoming school year, and expanding family supports through family support centers and Judy centers across the state is another initiative of the Blueprint. These centers coordinate the delivery of a wide range of services offered by the state to low-income families with children, and in some cases, not only coordinate the delivery of those services, but co-locate those services so that there's a one-stop shop for families. Ultimately, the expected outcome for Pillar 1 is for all students to enter kindergarten ready to learn by age 5. Pillar 2, high quality and diverse teachers and leaders. The goal is to make teaching a high status profession by raising pay and status of teachers, including a performance-based career ladder, a minimum statewide salary of $60,000, and salaries comparable to similarly educated professionals, with the aim of matching the teacher workforce with the diversity of Maryland students, statewide and by district. Improve recruiting and professional development efforts to create and sustain teaching faculty. Schools are to be places where teachers are provided with a system of incentives and supports to continuously improve their professional practice, and promote and incentivize national board certification and restructuring of the teacher preparation programs. But that work is ongoing and based upon cooperation with the institutions of higher learning. Pillar 3, college and career readiness. Establishing a meaningful college and career readiness system is the first requirement. Students that are CCR should be ready to succeed in advanced college and career training and work during their last 2 years of high school. So the idea is that by 10th grade, they will be ready for college or the workforce. The second requirement, as I stated, will maximize the number of students that are CCR by 10th grade. And the third requirement is about helping match businesses to individuals. Unemployment and vacancies don't always align, so Maryland will be required to be more strategic to help our workforce and students connect, and that will require external partnerships. The fourth requirement of the blueprint is that Maryland districts work toward empowering all students to be prepared for transition from a foundational academic education to an increasingly focused readiness for career. And the authors of the blueprint envision accountability for this, taking our current dual enrollment costs, for example, will potentially have more than triple the number of students who were enrolled in dual enrollment courses, and then also those who are taking AP courses. All of those funds, along with funds for career counseling, would be expectations of the blueprint. So Pillar 4, more resources so all students are successful, aims to elevate the status of Maryland students to an international standard while eliminating opportunity and achievement gaps so that all students are successful. Through that, providing supplemental instruction and more resources for all students, accurately identifying students who need additional resources to be successful, improving the education of English learners, and provide early supports and interventions for students. Also improving the education of students with disabilities and providing supports for students attending schools with a high concentration of students living in poverty. We're charged to work with our mental health coordinator to expand community partnerships and enhance opportunities and access to local health organizations, along with efforts to increase student behavioral and mental health services and behavioral support for all students, and provide additional staffing and training to implement the supports identified. Our accountability measures are included in the identification of an EL family coordinator whose responsibilities would include translation services, cultural competency training for school personnel, referrals to outside resources that school may be able to directly provide, and other school engagement. And our last pillar is governance and accountability. And the monitoring, funding, and reporting aspect of that pillar, we're charged to create, review, and improve implementation plans throughout this process and monitor progress through the expected timeline, which I'll reference in a minute. Establish and deploy expert review teams across the state to look at best practices and areas for improvement. Monitor blueprint outcomes, and of course, report to MSDE and the AIB throughout that process. A large part of this accountability rests with the steering committee and our Calvert County Blueprint Committee. Implementation plans are due in phases throughout the duration of the blueprint, and the expected outcome is that the blueprint is fully implemented with fidelity and successful in achieving its goals. So we're really thinking about how to reimagine the way we do business in education over the next 10 years and beyond. So our remaining timeline is as follows. Our team began writing in December and will continue that process through February 1st, where we'll receive our initial draft plan. That plan will be reviewed over the course of that week by our steering committee and our Calvert County Blueprint Committee. And then there's a presentation that I will give to our Board of Education on February 9th to update them on the status of our implementation plan. We also have the second of our town hall meetings later in February to update the community on the progress of our implementation plan. On March 1st, we will again review our updated plan based on the recommendations, our steering committee and Calvert County Blueprint Committee. March 9th will be another board presentation, and then on March 15th, we submit the final draft of our implementation plan to the AIB and MSDE. Then we start working on phase 2. So the blueprint timeline, as you can see here, shows the timeline for the life of the blueprint through 2032, and it's broken into 3 phases. The plan for the first phase is due in March, as stated before. Phase 2 is due next spring and will include implementation for 2024 through 2027. The plan for the third phase is due in July of 2028. and there are 2 updates required to our plans in 2025 and in early 2028. So where can I get more information? We have Blueprint information on our Calvert County Public Schools website under the Blueprint tab. And the AIB's website is listed here, along with the MSDE website. All of those you can receive up-to-date and accurate information on Blueprint, as well as progress toward implementation. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
I do, Mr. President. Actually, back on Pillar 1, and I don't know if there's any flexibility allowed on this or not. You know, I think I understand the Blueprint is all about making a child successful, right? At the end of the day, that's the goal. But when I look at Pillar 1, and it says expansion of full-day pre-kindergarten to be free for all low-income 3- and 4-year-olds. Shouldn't make a difference what the income level is. A 3-year-old, 4-year-old needs the same education as anybody else. And everybody says, you know, that's where education starts. Is the most important part is when they're young. You know, we don't know what's going on at mom and dad's house. I mean, you know, we see a W-2 or a tax return, but they could have medical bills. They could, I mean, are we going to tell somebody no because of what their income tax return says that their child can't go to school? And we're going to use public funds to fund it? You know what I mean? I don't know, has the state of Maryland got any flexibility on that, or if that's a hard line, but it seems like we start right out the gate saying, we want you to be successful, but and I'm not trying to say this the wrong way, but if mom and dad are successful, we're penalizing them for being successful because saying, well, you can't use our system. Maybe mom and dad's running here, running there, wherever, where it'd be much easier to put them into school and let them get started on the same education that everybody else does. Because to me, even and I'm not putting down anybody's business or whatever, but if this is the blueprint that the child's supposed to follow, it seems to me the sooner they get into it, the better. And we're gonna penalize the child because a parent makes a certain level of income. I mean, am I reading that right?
So the way I understand it is that it's going to be offered on a sliding scale. So yes, the priority is for low-income families. I know in Calvert County, we are not going to have an issue where we're going to have to turn people away. But across the state, that may be a different situation. So understanding your point, there could be some flexibility in that. I don't know. That's yet to be determined. But it is a phase-in process, so it's not going to happen all at once, and districts aren't moving to full-day pre-K all at one time, which would then cause hardships for some of those students that you mentioned. It's a phase-in process, so I don't know where everybody is in that.
Because you know, I remember when Lexi was little, and I thought, you know, it was a no-brainer to take her to pre-K, and they're like, you make too much money. I'm like, so my child can't go, but I pay for it. I got a disconnect here. You know what I mean? So to me, and like I said, I don't know what the flexibility is, but that should be open for every child, every parent. I mean, the whole goal is to, you know, every child is successful.
So there is a stipulation where, because it's on a sliding scale, those who are above that poverty threshold would pay a tuition difference. But again, I don't know if that's going to change or whether there's
And
flexibility
I
in
understand
that.
the mindset
Yeah.
to say, well, they can afford to do it. Wrong. You know, I know that's what the whole, you know, should have nothing to do with mom and dad. It should be that child and the education. I mean, that's the whole, my perception of this, that's the whole goal here, is to make this kid as successful as humanly possible. I mean, I'm assuming this thing is etched in stone. Is that correct? Or do we have flexibility on a local level?
We do not have flexibility on the local level because what's determined on that sliding scale we have to follow.
Wow.
I agree with Mike. Where's the diversity in this? To exclude children just because of their family's income. I don't get it. What has been the role of parents as you have gone forward, and with this program, did you have meetings with parents beforehand? Have parents have input as to what this Kerwin Commission is putting forward?
So in terms of our local implementation plan, we surveyed parents. There was a parent survey that went out last month, and there were some blueprint questions on that. And
This
so,
is- The train has already left the station, and now you're surveying parents?
well, actually, what we are in is phase one, and the phase one of our implementation plan is the what are you doing now phase. Phase two is the what are you going to do differently phase for the next 3 years. So we have time to get all of that community input and feedback. So that's why we're starting that process now, because we're just reporting at this point. Our changes that we're going to be making will be determined over the course of the next year.
And that was the reason we established the work group, was to bring in different perspectives so that it wasn't just a plan drafted by CCPS professionals, that they had a work group to work through to make sure there was outside, communications.
How many parents were part of that work group?
We haven't started our work groups yet with
Okay.
parents, but like I said, that work will be over the course of this next year in order to put the plan in place for the following 3.
Now, did I hear you correctly? You're going to have a town hall meeting in February?
Yes, we haven't set the late February date yet. We had one already on December 19th.
What will that look like, and where might it be held?
So the first one was virtual, and it was the week before the holiday break, which obviously was a tough time for people with their schedule. So we're still determining what that's going to look like. The hope is that it would be in person, if we can. So that's yet to be determined.
Thank you.
Well, we would strongly encourage that there's an opportunity for in-person participation. What we found is, through this process, there are certainly individuals that don't want to come out in person, but there are other individuals that like face-to-face communication. So we would hope that we could provide that option to include as much participation as possible.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, as you say, the legislation has sort of laid out what this is going to look like. It's just a matter of making sure that parents feel like they've been included in the discussions to lay out the plan that's actually going to affect our students here in Calvert County. Because they certainly have different perspectives. It's just navigating that legal framework and then what the implementation framework actually looks like at the end of the day. So that's our whole goal here. And I am happy to see that it's just not a college career path that's been laid out in the legislation, that, there are many, many students that just don't want to follow that path, some that just can't follow that path. But as we see today, there's lots of opportunities out here for careers where people can make very good salaries and don't have to follow that path. We've been very supportive of the Career Center. There are many, many examples where students have gone through that Career Center, haven't been burdened with college tuitions, and have got great jobs and are on a great path forward. So I particularly am very happy that the focus is not just on college path, because I know that's sort of been a trend in the past. So we're glad to see that. I mean, the biggest challenge that, we all talk about is funding. Because we are considered a wealthy county. Our funding through the state generally is not as fruitful as it is in other areas. So at the end of the day, it's figuring out what this is going to cost and how we meet those challenges. So, we just want to work through that as best we can. And the superintendent who has joined us, it's been great so far about communications. And, we understand this is the first step, and that we want to do this as often as we can. The more transparent we are about this, the more acceptable it'll be to the general citizens out there. Because at the end of the day, those citizens that don't have children in the system are going to pay for this. At the end of the day, it's taxpayers that are going to pay for this. So everybody needs to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what the end results are going to look like. So that's why we insisted on the work group, and we want to make sure that we continue that. And I think so far we've had it's been excellent. So we just want to make sure we keep down that path. So. Any other questions? Will we, do you want to let the members introduce themselves?
Commissioners, I would like that to happen, and if they have just a brief comment, but one of the reasons why I want them to introduce themselves is they came from both of the commissions. They came from the Board of Education, they came from the Board of County Commissioners, so that we had that good mix. So if we could start by whoever gets to the mic first. And we do have a couple of folks, and I will say this. Go. I will say this, we have Pamela Cousins, who is our most recent committee member, so she may not be visible, but I think she's with us. So, Pam, if you want to start out and just introduce yourself, please do so.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes.
Morning.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be on the committee, and I want to thank the Board of Education for their nomination and approval last week at their January 12th meeting, and I'm happy to contribute to the effort going forward. Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you.
And we also have Donna Stenso, who is joining virtually. So if Donna, if you can hear us, please introduce yourself.
Good morning.
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 Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I have just recently had my knee replaced.
Oh.
So, yes. So, there's a new definition for me of the word pain now. But I didn't want to miss this opportunity because, as Buddy mentioned, the work group that he was integral in forming is made up of community, union, and Board of Education appointments. And we do meet monthly, and I think that there's been a lot of good discussion that has come out of that. And I would be happy at any time to engage Mike or Nancy in conversations around the pre-K issue that was talked about and the reason for the phasing in. It's not excluding anyone because pre-K is not mandatory like kindergarten is. So there is a reason behind that phase-in process. So I do not want anyone in the community to think that we are excluding 3 or 4-year-olds from a mandatory program. So that's important that I did want to make that comment. So thank you. I will turn the mic back over.
Thank you, Donna. Hope you feel better.
And now, any
Thank
members
you.
from the audience that are committee members, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, oh my gosh. Hi, I'm Melissa Masusi Osborne. I was appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. I'm a parent in the community. So one of the things that we were asked to do as part of this committee was a survey. The Board of Education put together some questions. I have sent all of you my responses. It's 5 pages long, so I'm not going to read it, but you do have it in your email. I sent it prior to coming here. One of the things that I did want to point out, though, to your point, Mr. Hart and Ms. Grasso, especially around the pre-K, it is a big deal because right now, as Mr. Sampson mentioned, we have to change our half-day programs to full-day programs. We are going to run into space issues. So as we look at the financing, just of that one pillar alone, we're going to run out of space. And we already have a lack of private pre-K providers in this county and daycare providers to where many of our parents don't have a place to send their kids today. That is going to continue to be a problem as we have to tap into those private providers and get their help in providing pre-K. So I think pillar one is, all of the pillars have a great impact to this community and to our tax dollars. But I wanted to point that one out because you did bring it up. Secondly, we are in the middle of a legislative session. I think your point is valid. Right now, they do say that if you are at a certain income level, you do have to pay. That is going to be exclusionary, especially as we're tapping into our private providers. There's not going to be any place for those above that income level to send their children. So I think because we're in the middle of a legislative session, we need to bring together all of our resources. I know that the teachers union is currently in discussions. Donna Stenza mentioned that in one of our meetings around blueprint legislation. We need to be doing the same. We need to be doing it from a Board of Education standpoint, what you guys can do from this county at the state level. We need to be talking to our legislatures, because the way the blueprint is written today is going to end up causing some issues that we're not prepared to handle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Willis, do we have any numbers on how many potential 3 and 4-year-olds are out there? Is there any way to obtain those numbers?
We don't have that information with us today, Commissioner, but we can certainly reach out and gather that information.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Thank you for appointing me to the Commissioner's side of this committee. I have experience on both sides. I've served on the local school board, as you know, and also represented the school boards across the state and served on the state board. This is a long process. This started around 2015, 2016, and as you heard Dr. Sampson said, it goes into the 2030s. A lot of change. I'm impressed with the amount of time spent to make sure that we do address the issues and get the plan together. There were hearings at the beginning, before we even got into the blueprint piece. There were hearings around the state to get a view of what are the needs, what are the requirements. There was an assessment made. So as we drill down, that was a 30,000 foot level, if you will. As we drill down and now at the local level, clearly there will be a need for more specificity in how it would be applied and executed in the county. So I'm glad to be on that committee to help the way that we can. And also the unique thing about this is there's more involvement on the legislative side than in the past. Normally it will come down through the State Board of Education, and they take the big lead. But there are also, there's an accountability implementation group, and it's structured differently to ensure that we address the issues that are coming up. So we just have to make sure that we understand where we are along this spectrum of getting it implemented, and make sure that we get our input in there.
Thank you, Wilson.
Thank you.
Good morning.
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 My name is Stacy Taman, and I am the president of the Calvert Association of Educational Support Staff. My voice on this committee represents those that are not specifically named in the blueprint. We can be found in Pillar 1 and in more resources. But we'll be instrumental in the implementation of the blueprint. And the blueprint should be looked at as more than just an obligation. This is an opportunity for this county and this state to build a world-class school system that removes barriers for students and incorporates the skills and expertise of all staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey.
Good morning, Commissioners, and congratulations on your re-elections or elections.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Schisler. Was appointed to this committee by the Board of Ed, and I'm the former principal up at Beach Elementary School. If you'll give me about 180 seconds, I'll share some thoughts with you. Some of you, I think, will remember some names like Bill Clinton, the first Bush, George W. Bush, Obama. My point being here is that American education has gone through reform cycles, and usually they go for about 10 years. We actually started thinking about reforming our schools way back in 1910. But it got to the point, and as Stacy just mentioned about world-class schools, world-class students, that really hit the fan when we were going with the first Bush and then with Clinton about Goals 2000, America 2000. We wanted to get our schools to the point where our kids were competitive with anybody, anywhere in the world, and had the skills to compete. Because the world, as you know, has become more interconnected, and everybody has to learn how to work with each other if you're going to have a chance. The other thing I would think, and looking at you folks, I bet some of you, maybe Mr. Ireland, remember sitting in school and taking assessments called MSPAP or MSA. So we've had these cycles of reform in Maryland, and that goes back to Donald Schaefer and then Glenn Denning. So this has been something on the plate for years and years. And Mr. Hart, when you talk about pre-K and what doesn't seem fair, what also often has not seemed fair is that we say something, we promise something, and that as a state, as a country, we don't deliver on it financially. Case in point, I read recently that when George Bush proposed No Child Left Behind, I think the funding was set for like $32 billion. Eventually, only $23 billion went out to states. So you see the gap there. We're always dealing with gaps. So the challenge now with this blueprint is, are we going to decide what's going to be best to get our kids, all of our kids, to be successful when they walk out of a high school door and they have choices of either go into careers or they have choices to go to college. That door is going to be moving. And that's what we're doing here now. And another thing to think of, thank you for your patience today, because you've had a lot presented to you this morning. And when you're dealing with big change, you go through four stages. You go through an awareness stage, and I bet all of you are at least aware of the term blueprint. Then you go to an understanding stage. Well, what we're trying to do, even us on the committee, is to understand what the heck this is all about. So we're trying to present you with information today to increase your understanding. And as you go down the road, as Dr. Sampson said, you start tweaking things, you work on your plan, and that's called guided practice. You work on that. And hopefully you get to the point where you can apply what you've been talking about. And application is the last stage. So think of this in terms of 10 years. That's tough for Americans to do. Our attention spans, are a lot shorter. Our political lives are a lot shorter. So for us to make a commitment to our kids, every kid in our county, that they're going to be successful, that's going to depend on the school board, the school system, and as well as the community and the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I believe that's it for those that are present.
So, Dr. Townsell,
Yes.
as always, the mic is open for you, sir, if you'd like to add anything. Not to put you on the spot.
Greetings, County Commissioners, Dr. Sampson team. Let me just say this bit. If anyone can pull off the blueprint, Calvert County can. I just want to share that a little bit. We always are going to think about all of our students. Our philosophy is all means all. So I just want to be clear about that. But when I hear across the state, when I meet with my different colleagues about the challenges, I stay away from that and I'm about results. Wherever we are academically, where our young people are achieving, we're going to be better and better and better over time. I think we'll be the top district in the next 10 years at the end of the blueprint with how we execute. I just met with my secondary principals today with our data that we just received back. It's a lot of things that are promising in Calvert County with the team that we have in place, the hard work that we put in every single day. I'm confident that we're going to have a phenomenal school system and probably be top 1, top 2 next 4 years. That's my projection and prediction. So I'm confident with the team. Whatever plan they put in front of us, we're going to worry about Calvert County young people and do it to the best of our ability to make sure we cover all, because all means all to us. So I just want to share that a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we also, just so that the public knows that within the county government, my administrative assistant is Ruthie Buckler. She kind of keeps us administratively going forward. I know you need somebody to track me every day, so.
Or two.
But we also have, the county attorney works with us during these commission meetings as well. I will say that we've had an excellent kind of partnership with the committee that's been brought together. So I think we're all looking forward to where it's going to take us, and we know it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a challenge, but we're looking at what's right for the school kids, and we're looking at what's right fiscally, and we need to bring those two together. So, Dr. Sampson, would you like to close us out, sir? Yeah, so this is, you got to be careful because, first of all, I got some calligraphy from my deputy administrator. We asked a question about what were our pre-K numbers, but what we're able to pull from the Census Bureau is that roughly about 3.5% of the total population of 92,000, almost 93,000, we're right at 5% is under the age of 5 years old. So we're in that pre-K area. So, and we'll fine tune this information as we go forward, just so that we know the demographic that we're looking at, so.
Well, and, to, like Melissa's point with daycare, that's something we've been working, with Jennifer and daycare providers, because everybody's gotta be on the same page, and they are experiencing shortages right now, so, it's, I don't wanna coin the phrase, no child left behind, but, that's a good phrase, no one's left behind, so, we get those numbers, and, so I was wondering, what kind of flexibility do we have? Maryland's famous, and probably most jurisdictions, states, to cookie cutter approach it, so, if we can do it better, I hope we have the flexibility to do it better, so.
Comments? We good? So I do want to take this opportunity to thank all the volunteer members of the work group. You're there to represent the other citizens and organizations that you represent. It's important for you to reach out to your various constituents and make sure you're representing their views. Just want to encourage as much public outreach and transparency as we can, as we work through this process, and anytime there's a need for an update. And it's not just for us, I want you in because the camera's on and people can watch this and go back and re-watch it so that everybody understands where we are in this process and how we're moving along. It's going to be a challenge. Nobody's said it's going to be easy, but we all share Dr. Townsel's perspective that we want our children to have the best opportunity they can have, and equally across the board. We don't want to leave anybody behind. Thank you for your presentation today, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Former Commissioner Perrin also said that we haven't put him on nearly enough committees, so he's looking for more work.
I was wondering about that, I heard he had about an hour free on a Thursday somewhere.
Once a month. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
The next, our second presentation today is Department of Human Resources, Police Accountability Board. Well, look who's back again.
Wow.
Commissioner Perrin, bring anybody you'd like.
Okay. Good morning.
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 It's been a while since I've talked to you.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I'm Wilson Perrin. I'm in front of you right now as the chairperson of the Police Accountability Board. And I've asked the chairperson of the Administrative Charging Committee to join me, Scott Deacon, and also asked Sheriff Cox to join me because we're all in this together. What we wanted to do this morning, we're required to give you an update, an annual end-of-year report every year. So we've been effective since July 1st. This is a half year we're giving you a report on, so we'll not have as much detail as the other future reports. It also was an election year, so we wanted to wait until the new sheriff was actually decided and in before we actually did a lot of the work. So we used the time before that to actually put in place the foundation we need to be successful going forward. So what I want to do this morning is to, because we have three new board members, give you a little background as to how we got to this point. Talk a little bit about the board and the committee, what they do, and also their accomplishments, and then get into what we're going to do going forward into 2023. So normally you would have some recommendations in terms of enhancements to process improvements, but we wanted to make sure that we met with the sheriff and we worked through that together. So we have had meetings, very successful meetings, I feel, to get us an opportunity to hit the road running. So I thank you for the opportunity to serve on this, the two boards, actually. I'm on the Police Accountability Board and Vice Chair of the Administrative Charging Committee. So the purpose is to give you that presentation. What is this? purpose is to give you an update, end of year report. And so let's start with the background. In October of 2021, the county attorney's office began hosting town meetings. That was to get input from the public. And they did that over a period of about three and a half months to get reaction from the public, suggestion from the public as to how we would implement the law here in Calvert County. And the board, in February of 2022, created a resolution which created the Police Accountability Board here in Calvert County and the Administrative Charging Committee. And the Human Resources Group houses the support person that supports the day-to-day operation of those two organizations. And they also, in that period of time, in March of last year now, you put together a citizen review and nominating committee, because you had a lot of applications, folks applied that wanted to serve. And what you put in place with that review and nominating committee was it was an excellent way of doing it, quite frankly, because it sustains not only getting input from the community to decide who would get on these boards, but also to make sure it was clear that we met the requirements in terms of diversity and the balance of the board. Another spillover benefit of that was when the PAB, the Accountability Board, had to select 2 members of the ACC, we used that same process that you put in place to select those 2 members. So that put us ahead of a lot of the other jurisdictions, because they had to re-advertise, and it took a period of about 60 days to get someone appointed. So you appointed 8 of the PAB members in June of last year, and 2 of the ACC members, and 1 trial board member. In July, the law went into effect, so for the most part, we were in, and according to law, we were supposed to follow the law. At that point, we had no infrastructure in place. We had to think through how we were going to do this. We could not have done this without the staff, and I have a slide at the end that recognized the work of the staff. In August, you appointed the 9th member of the PAB. The PAB appointed the 2 ACC members and a member of the trial board. And I'll go into the responsibilities of all those groups pretty soon. The one thing I want to show you here is the members of the PAB. I don't know how many members we have here today, but at the end, I'll ask them to stand up and introduce themselves. The responsibility of the PAB, first of all, the law says we need to put a process in place to receive complaints from the public of police misconduct, and also to hold monthly meetings with law enforcement to improve matters of policing. We were also to review the outcome of the disciplinary matters considered by the charging committee, and also to provide an annual report to you. At the end, I'll go through the flow chart that brings all these pieces together and how it works. It actually goes full circle in terms of focusing on how we can improve the policing overall. So getting in place on July 1st, the first thing we had to do was to create a form where the citizen could complain online, make it easy. So we did that. We created the form, went through the process with staff support, and the form is online. We also created a website for the PAB and the ACC. We designed the logo for the PAB, and also created a complaint tracker. So we had the ability to enter the complaints online, but now we wanted to make sure that if anyone entered a complaint, they can track online the status of that complaint. So when a complaint comes in, we have 72 hours to get it to the law enforcement entity, and in our case, it's the sheriff's office here in Calvert County. So we have 72 hours to get it over. We log it here, and anyone, this is open to the public, can go online and see what complaints we have out there, the status of those complaints, and can track the status, and there is a way they can contact us if they need to. So since July of 2022, a total of 36 complaints have been received. This is as of December 19th. I think we may have a couple of more. And as we look at that number, I don't know what your reaction might be. Some may say, well, that's a high number, or that's a low. The main thing is, if these complaints are coming in, going through an investigative process, we look at it, and they point to opportunities to either improve policy, if that's the case, or it's not sustained or exonerated. So we look at it from the standpoint of, do we have an administrative charge or not? So I would suggest not to look at that number, because that number indicates an opportunity to improve overall. The sheriff's office, what we did to make sure that we had a secure place to put all the investigative cases, we're talking about personnel. So we have to make sure that only people with access, that need access, has access. If you don't need access, you can't get into that. So we actually gave the ACC members county computers, secure computers. We have access to a server or a network that's private to them. No one else can get in. They can view the investigative results, look at those results, look at the videos, and communicate through the county system using county emails. So we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to put that in place so that people feel comfortable that when the sheriff's office passes information over to us, that it's going to be secure and we're not going to share it with anyone. By the way, the details of these cases are not even shared with the PAB. The ACC need this to do their job, but the PAB just needs to look at the opportunities to improve the process. So we do have that in place. In October, we worked with the state, and the state put together a 5-day training process for the ACC, and we were the first to be trained in the state. So with the help of Liz Drew, our support person, administrative person, she was able to get the 3 counties to meet together for this training. We were hosted at the College of Southern Maryland in Prince Frederick, and so we were trained from October 17th to October 21st, and by law, we couldn't even look at or meet as a board to act on any of these cases until we were trained. So that training was in place. The trial board had a 2-day training, and the next slide, I just want to show you the status of where the training process is around the state. The green shows the locations where the training is completed. The yellow, the training has been scheduled but not completed. And the red, they have not yet trained. So keep in mind, if you have not yet been trained or your training is pending, those ACCs cannot be operating right now.
I thought the law was
it's
July 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tad tardy?
I would
getting
say
there?
yes. And this is from the Maryland Training website. We didn't put this together. We took it
Commissioner,
right off
the
law.
law was passed, but none of these boards or county commissioners, in a sense, was never given any clear direction on how a board looks like. Yeah, I think we've done a good job so far putting it together, but these are the counties are dealing with, because legislation was passed, but there was never any clear direction on how it was set up or what it looked like, so.
Okay, good, because I thought that was mandated July 1.
Yeah, it was, and our staff did a really good job of putting together what it should look like and took it to the public, got input, and that put us way ahead. The
It's
work
funny.
that your staff did actually put us way ahead on this.
It's funny when you look at the map, right? You look at the collection that's ready and the collection, like, it's almost like, you know. Yeah. Okay. Glad we're in compliance.
So we've had the training, we've met with the, some of the achievements of the PAB. We had the training, we met with the law enforcement in Calvert County. We had a detailed presentation from the sheriff's office. This was in September. And we also had a detailed presentation from the state police. Now, the state police process is a little bit different. There is a PAB at the state level. And so there's a little different in process, and we had that clarified at the beginning. So there will not be any doubt as to, if we got a complaint, we'll send it to the state police, we will track the status of it. But it takes their route's a little bit different in terms of how you get to the results of the findings. Let's see if there's anything else. We also produced a memorandum of understanding with the state's attorney's office, because in some of the complaints, there may be a criminal element to it, and we got to make sure, if that's the case, the state's attorney is involved, so we clarified as how we would interact between us, and Scott will probably get into a little bit of that information in a minute. I think it was very important that we, on November 30th, we had our meeting, we met with the sheriff, and I can tell you that we are working together. We're not going to agree on everything up front, but I think we...
Like a marriage, right?
That's right, that's right, but we're going to make it.
Speak for your own marriage.
That's right.
God bless my wife.
I do everything she says.
That's
There's
right.
no arguing.
At this point, I want to give Scott, the chair of the ACC, the next couple slides. We have 5 members of the ACC appointed for 5 years, 3 years, 3 years each. Scott?
Well, first, thank you for the opportunity to be on that committee, and right now I am the first chair. And it's kind of like flying an airplane while you're still building it. It's, we just want to keep altitude and airspeed and hope we don't crash. So in any case, talk a little bit about the makeup. We have 1 former commissioner and who has volunteeritis, Mr. Perrin. And that works out very well, to be honest
Thank God
with
it's
you, to have.
incurable.
Hey, I call it like it is. I'm old. So it works out very well that we have the head of the PAB as well as the chairman, because the Open Meetings Act, if we have 3 members, it constitutes a meeting. So he and I can go represent both functions and do what we need to do from an administrative process and get it worked out. So one of the other folks is a nurse practitioner, a pediatric nurse practitioner still working. One's a mental health professional. One of them is a physicist, and one of them has 28 years' experience as a federal investigator. So we have this is a great team. We have open and frank discussions, and again, I would like to applaud the fact that you all funded those systems. It allows people to take a look at those cases, particularly the video. And we're finishing up our standing rules, but one of them is you have to look at all of the evidence prior to meeting. And some of those cases may have 10 hours of video. And although it can be mind-numbing, the task is you will look at it all because it's important, just like you have to listen to all the evidence in the case. So we appreciate that. So I think we can go to the next slide. Here's our responsibilities. We will review the agency's investigation. We determine first thing you determine is whether an administrative charge has been done or not. And very early in this process, when we came back, Mr. Perrin and I met with the investigators. We wanted to understand how they did their job, how do they track it, and they make a recommendation to us, this is what we think. Because we make these determinations under the same law. They look at it from their investigative standpoint, is a administrative charge warranted? And the state law is very prescriptive in how it describes the categories, the and it gives you examples of offenses that fit in those categories. It gives you a band of potential punishment in there, and it gives you aggregating factors and mitigating factors. It's very well thought out. It's very similar to how the government does security clearances, looking against adjudicator standards. So we basically adjudicate. In any case, it was very helpful to get that understanding and open a dialogue. We recognized that we need to have established a relationship, so Captain Parent, in fact, he's free to call me anytime and has on a couple things to discuss. In any case, if we find that there is an administrative finding, we have the county attorney helps correctly write that up, and we would send it back. Unfortunately, we were late to task. That's one of the great challenges that we faced, because we were supposed to be effective 1 July. Between 1 July and the time we got trained, there were cases that came through, and the sheriff's office did exactly what they were supposed to do, investigated those cases, adjudicated those cases, and took action. Well, we feel compelled that because that was our responsibility, we went and looked back at all those cases. There's another instance in this law that causes a bit of consternation, is that we have 30 days from the day we received the case to the day we adjudicate it. Well, those cases, all 20 of them, or 20 of those cases, were outside that window the day we signed, the day we got trained. Well, it's silent on what happens if you don't. So, as we were working through some of these things, we were able to call back to the instructors in the Police Training Commission and discuss some of our issues. And because we were ahead of the game and well thought out, we were kind of the vanguards for how this process works for the rest of the state. And we openly share our processes and our documents and our forms. The staff developed a great form on how you track things with drop-down menus that keeps a record. Each person does their own, and then we meet and discuss in the aggregate how it works. So it's worked very, very well. As soon as Sheriff Cox was sworn in, and we were able to get a meeting with him on the 9th of January, we went again, Wilson and I went over and wanted to establish a relationship with him and his staff. We are a shared service provider both for the sheriff's office to help them improve and the community to make sure that their needs are served. We are independent, but we recognize that we have to do community engagement. We've made the offer with Sheriff Cox, and we're going to work out the time. We want to talk to the sheriffs because there's some uneasiness that they've lost the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights and what we do. We are going to be open and transparent in everything we do. There's a 100% chance we're not going to get it 100% right every time. That's just the way it is. But we're going to work through it. And our real goal is within this 3 years, with the people that will come behind us, go, what made us think that was so hard? So hopefully we'll do well with that. And in fact, on excuse me, on community engagement, we will look for other entities within the county to come talk to citizens about what we do and how this process works and what to expect. So I think that across the board, we have a good process, we have a good team, we have the right people and the right resources at this time, and it's like so we'll have disagreements, but they will be professional. It's not personal. It truly is our observation as it relates to my job, our observation of the evidence against the standards, and it's that simple. And so, I think that's it.
Yeah. Just want to quickly touch on the trial board. Retired Judge Larry Lamson is out of town right now, so he didn't join us here. But this is an important piece. And as we go through that flow chart quickly, I'll show where this comes in. The responsibilities of the trial board is, of course, to handle the appeal from the process where the deputy may not agree with the results, and they have the opportunity to go to the trial board, and if they don't agree with the results of the trial board, they can go to circuit court. So here, I want to just quickly go through, this is the process and how all this comes together. We have the PAB, the Police Accountability Board. We have the Administrative Charging Board. We have the Sheriff's Office, which is the investigative group. We have the Trial Board, And all of this comes together as we go through here. And so you have, if you look at this process, you have under the Accountability Board, where we receive a complaint online from a citizen, from the public. We forward that over to the sheriff's office. However, they can also, someone can come into the sheriff's office and complain, and the sheriff's office would take that complaint, and they'll forward that information to us so that we can also track it on the complaint tracker. After the sheriff's office would do the investigation, or if it's the state police, they will do the investigation for their piece. And once that's done, the results are forwarded to us in this secure database that we have, or server that we have. We have 30 days to look at those results of the investigation, and we would either determine whether there is a charge, that person would be administratively charged or not. If they're not administratively charged, that's it. That's it. There may be an opportunity to talk about a policy or something, but as far as that case would be closed there. If they're administratively charged, we go through a process that's pretty much standard throughout the whole state. The state created a disciplinary matrix for us to use. We had to adopt that locally, but it's pretty much across the state. When it's determined that someone should be administratively charged, we're going to go through category A through F to determine what that charge should be based on what level within the category. Once we do that, we write up in detail why we came to that conclusion. We forward that along with the charge level to the sheriff. The sheriff, according to law, can look at that and agree with it and pass it on to the officer, the deputy, or the sheriff can increase it. The sheriff cannot decrease it, according to the law. So, and once the deputy gets that, if they disagree with it, they can appeal it to the trial board, and it takes the process of the circuit court if we don't come to an agreement. So that process, that flow chart that we put together here is the one that the Maryland Training Commission adopted, that they're using as part of their training now as they go out around the state. So just a couple of goals. We're getting close to the end. Just a couple of goals that I want to just highlight. We want to continue to provide the citizens the ability to file complaints of police misconduct or their perception of police misconduct, and we have a transparent process. They'll see more of that working once the PAB meets in February, because that's the first time you now have cases that have been reviewed by the ACC, that the PAB can look at the results and say, is there an opportunity to improve a policy or anything else? So you'll really see it in working coming up within a month. We want to continue to build a relationship with the local law enforcement, continue to improve matters of policing, review outcomes of the disciplinary matters considered by the charging board, develop visual data tracking techniques for display of complaint information, that is to simplify the tracking that you now see on the website. We want to look at changing that to some graphical, easier to read kind of information. To engage the community and local law enforcement regarding the roles and responsibilities of the PAB and ACC. Scott mentioned that we're willing to go out to any community group and explain what we do so that they have a better appreciation of what we do. This would not be an opportunity to talk about any specific cases, but to explain just how we all work together to get to that. We can go out with the sheriff, we can go out to the two of us alone, or if you hear of an opportunity that someone's asking questions and you feel that they could benefit from more information from any of us, we gladly go out and do that to support the overall process. And we'll work with the new sheriff to discuss and recommend several opportunities to enhance policing. I think the real opportunity we have is with the new sheriff coming in, new process, just like if you were going to a new job. You've pretty much got a clean slate. It's his perspective that's going to lead the law enforcement piece. We can help him by identifying where there's an opportunity to enhance policies so that we can better serve the citizens and the deputies. Because if there's a policy, this is one thing I want to make sure that we're clear on. If there's a policy that's not clear, we're going to make a decision based on a policy that's not clear and then recommend a change to the policy. So as soon as we can get that in place, the better we'll be overall with solid policies going forward. So I would also like to take this time just to thank the county staff, the team, the county administrative office for pushing me to get on this board. The county attorney's office. Now, John's busy when I would work here before. But I tell you, John is really busy now. He's, we keep him pretty busy. But he's been really a part of that foundation to ensure that we're doing things right, making sure that we're abiding by the law, the open meetings, that the recommendations that we make are clear and it's not going to blow back on you. So he keeps us all out of trouble, and he's been doing that for a long time. The human resources folks, that's where we get Elizabeth Drew, our administrative support person. She's done an excellent job she's working with two boards, one with 9 members and one with 5. And I've heard the phrase, she's never said this, but it's like herding cats, but she's doing a good job of pulling us all together. Technology service folks and getting all that technology in place so that we have a secure system. And the communication and media relations to make sure that whatever we have going out or the video of taping of the meetings is clear and it's something that is user-friendly for the public. And the public broadcasting piece also, I think that's still under communication and media relations. So with that, I thank you. Sheriff, if you want to make some comments before we go into questions, or?
Commissioners, thank you. Mr. Barron, thank you for the presentation. Mr. Scott Deacon. My job as a sheriff, I feel, is to keep our citizens safe, our communities, our schools, and also and be able to make a complaint on our deputies too as well. This is all new to us. I have concerns at this point, meeting with every sheriff in the state, and I think we're going to work through those concerns. I think it's a work in progress, but I have a lot of projects on the table, and this is one of them. That we have to abide by the law that's put in place, but the board put in place has done a fantastic job so far. Like I said, I have some concerns on some findings that was dropped on my desk on Friday, which I met with my staff on Monday, but I think we can work through those. But I just want to say thank you, Mr. Perrin, and I look forward to working with you.
Sure. Thank you. Any questions, comments?
I do have a
Mr.
question.
Cox?
Thank you for your service in this. Is there any interreaction between this board and other boards in the state?
Absolutely. I'm glad Commissioner Cox, I'm glad you mentioned that because we are pretty much the pioneers. The training commission at the state level has referred other not law enforcement, but other counties to us to figure out how to get things done, how to put things in place, the tools that we've put in place, helping them to define what it is to secure the information that they need. We try to do most of this without paper and do it all online, and that way you can better secure it. But yes, we do, and we've also offered around the state that if they want us to come out and meet with their board or committee, we're willing to do that to help them. But yeah, we are a resource for the state.
Commissioner Cox, just to add on to that, so we met with every sheriff in the state, and it's kind of, our board does one thing, but, throughout the state, all the boards are doing different things, so we're trying to find a happy medium in there to, all operate the same way.
And I was just wondering about our complaints versus other counties.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And my job is, I want to still do proactive policing here in Calvert County, and I think every citizen wants that. And I want to continue that role in law enforcement here in Calvert, so.
Keep in mind, we have 9 administrative charging committees that have not been trained, and they cannot even operate as a committee until they're trained. So there would be a lot of questions out there in terms of what do we do, because they haven't even been trained yet.
Commissioner Hart?
I just wanted to say thank you. You know, when this board was first discussed, you know, I understand your pause because this thing has teeth. And I said that before, you know, and it's new territory. And sometimes it's easy to get swept into, well, it's just the cops. Or it's just this, it's just that. But they're human beings.
Yeah.
You know, with families and, you know, and your whole career, everything you've worked to a point. And it's a huge responsibility. What's misconduct? What's a mistake? What's criminal? You know, because if you don't have integrity in any system, you have nothing.
Yeah.
Right? If you can't trust it, you know, you have nothing, and it's a huge, huge responsibility. I've said it many times, God love you for being on it. I don't know who would want to be on this board because it is a extremely difficult task. But it sounds like we're taking a very methodical approach, which is great to hear.
And I would add, Commissioner Hart, again, it becomes the fact that we want to be open and transparent. So we had those conversations, and we will meet with Sheriff Cox and his team to talk about, this is what we see, what did we miss? We're not above making mistakes, and we need to be able to articulate why we think what we think. And in that conversation, we'll come to the right consensus, or the right agreement.
And I think that's apparent with you guys. You, like I say, it's looking at the approach of everything. You know, it's been taken very serious and very professional right from the get-go. And I mean, you know, if I was working law enforcement, the board would scare me to death. And I can tell you, like with my liquor license, I'm always on the phone with the liquor board or Ms. Taman. Hey, are we allowed to do this? Are we allowed to? Because things do change.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a big thing is mistake, intent, criminal, maybe bad training. You know, I mean, I can't even imagine to walk into the footsteps of law enforcement or anything to some of the unseeables that are seen and how you react in that moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I say, I like the approach that I'm hearing. So thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned that because part of the training, we had some virtual reality training, and it put us in the role of a police. And it gave us a situation, and you had a gun, and said, what would you do? So you go through it, and you got a feel for, one, the tension and the anxiety of any of these kinds of situations that you walk into, but you don't know when you walk into these situations. So part of our training, in order to be able to understand what we're getting as results of the investigation, is to try to put us, and I know you have more than 1 hour of training like we had, but at least give us a feel for that. And the other thing was, we did an exercise versus mental illness.
I'm
And
glad you brought that up. That's huge because I mean, that's a big part been lacking for years is putting the funding in for training. People don't understand. There are people truly have no idea why they're being detained because they have a mental illness. They truly don't know. But how do you know? As the officer, you know, I mean, and I've never done the work, but you know, I can admit, you get a call, and I tell everybody it starts off with a 911 call. You know, the officer's doing its job, and all of a sudden they get called to go there.
Yeah.
They only have a little bit of verbiage, don't know till they get there, and now you're trying all this information and everything running in the address. You know, I mean, it's a special human being,
Yeah,
and it's
you don't know
a
what you're
lot
up-
of responsibility, and
And I welcome Mr. Parent. We had our meeting they're open to come to any of our trainings if they would like, to see actually what we do on a day-to-day basis, ride-alongs, or if they would like to do that.
I would like to close with introducing
sure.
the members. Any members of the Police Accountability Board first? Here. Come to the mic and introduce yourself. Susan? Anyone else?
Hi, Susan Justice. Thank you for your appointment, and I'm proud to sit on the board, and I'm sure that we will work together for the best of the community and the police enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Anyone from the Administrative Charging Committee? Got 40% of us here at the table. With that, if you don't have any more questions, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for being a leader in the state on this thing.
Thank you,
So,
sir.
just want to say that, when we started this process, working with the county attorney, we wanted to make sure that we were as transparent as possible and involve the community as much as we could, because at the end of the day, if the community didn't have faith in this board, we were just wasting our time.
Yeah.
And we're so fortunate in Calvert County to have qualified individuals that stepped up and volunteered to serve. That's made a huge difference. And at the end of the day, as has been said, our officers are put in situations to make split-second decisions. And we want to make sure that we have a process that's fair to them, first of all, and fair to the citizens following those complaints, that their complaints have been heard and thoroughly evaluated, and, a decision has been made has a outcome. So, I understand the concern of the officers out there on the street every day, but I think when this is all said and done, it's going to be a good process that will help them at the end.
Like we said, it's a marriage, so we're working through it.
That's right.
Like Commissioner Hart said, all this is new to our deputies, even when, Commissioner Ireland, he's a deputy for, almost 30 years there. I mean, police work has evolved, so, I mean, it's, this is put in place and we have to adjust the way we do things.
Work in process, and we'll work through it. But
Yeah.
we're so
And I-
blessed to have all of you on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
And I would be remiss if we didn't congratulate Zachary Gadwell.
Oh, yeah, great guy, great kid.
Yep, very good.
It'd be good for us.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Y'all have a great day.
You too.
Next. Next on the agenda is an award presentation. Lorraine Joyner. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lorraine Joyner, Executive Administrative Assistant for the Department of Community Resources, here today as the Employee Recognition Committee Awards Coordinator to introduce a Team Excellence. Team Excellence Awards acknowledge employees who have excelled as a group, displayed cooperation and teamwork in support of a common goal or project, and produced exemplary results. Today, the ERC is recognizing the Veteran-Owned Businesses Promotion Team. Team members, when I call your name, please pick up your certificate from Katie and then join the commissioners up front. From the Department of Economic Development, Grace Fadley. Ashley Greeley. Kathy McAdams. And Jennifer May. From Communications and Media Relations, Daryl Baxter. John Bennett. Sarah Eman. Rosalind Gannis. Terrell Gross. Sean Pyfrom. And last but certainly not least, Kevin Schmidt. And now I get to give you a little background on this
Everybody's up
award
here,
and
let
on
me do
the
it.
effort that led to this recognition today. For a little over a year, I've had the privilege of serving as the county's staff liaison to the Veterans Affairs Commission. At each of our monthly meetings, we review a list of upcoming veterans and military holidays and observances. At our August 2022 meeting, we discussed National Veteran Small Business Week, which was to be observed October 31st through November 4th. And this would lead into the National Association of Counties' first ever annual observance of Operation Greenlight and, of course, Veterans Day. As a side note, Operation Greenlight was a brand-new initiative to support military veterans and raise awareness about the unique challenges they face by lighting our government buildings, businesses, and residences green from November 7th through the 13th. But back to the subject of Calvert's veterans-owned businesses. At that August meeting, VAC members asked about the possibility of creating a Calvert County veteran-owned business directory. So I contacted Economic Development and asked if they could coordinate a proclamation and observance of National Veteran Small Business Week, and if they could begin the process of creating a Calvert veteran-owned business directory. So, with about 50 workdays to pull together a proclamation, 3 video spotlights, additional Facebook spotlights for interested businesses, and create a list of Calvert County veteran-owned businesses, this 11-person team went to work. Together, they devised a campaign to showcase Calvert County veteran-owned businesses. The campaign included visits to various business locations throughout the county, interviews with business leaders, and mentions on the county's digital marketing platforms, creation of a web landing page and social media posts, digital assets linked back to the business's web pages, and map locations for additional positive impact to those organizations. To increase community engagement and help disseminate information about the company's economic development work with CMR, to develop videos showcasing 3 businesses which can be seen on the county's YouTube channel. Economic development staff mailed personalized handwritten letters to veteran-owned businesses, thanking them for their service and for locating in Calvert County. These letters were timed so they were received 1 to 2 days before Veterans Day. This campaign successfully generated engagement between economic development and the county's local businesses. It provided the ability to engage with businesses that were not aware of the programs and service and supports provided by the county, and to strengthen existing relationships. Digitally, the campaign brought traction to the county's website and social media channels, generating over 80,000 impressions, some of the highest numbers that the county has ever seen. CMR provided significant support for this initiative. Their public information staff boosted community awareness through social media posts and a press release. Calvert Broadcast assisted in the ideation and production of the 3 spotlight videos. Each team member handled a portion of production: audio, lighting, videography, editorial, leading to a seamless delivery of another broadcast quality asset for Calvert County citizens. As an additional outcome of this effort was Economic Development's creation of a veteran-owned business directory. This directory, still a work in progress, features more than 40 local veteran-owned businesses. Anyone interested in being included in the directory can contact the Department of Economic Development. Grace Fadley, and Kathy McAdams, I don't think Kathy's here today. Okay, are spearheading that effort. I am confident that I am speaking for the Veterans Affairs Commission when I share their gratitude and appreciation for the effort that this team has put into highlighting the contribution that veterans make to our community. The ERC is delighted to join the Board of County Commissioners in recognizing these exceptional co-workers for this very successful collaborative effort. Thank you, Commissioners, for your continued support of the Employee Recognition Committee and for partnering with us to recognize Calvert County government's truly remarkable workforce. And I do believe that perhaps the department heads might want to say a word or two.
Thank you, Lorraine. You said it beautifully. I don't have much to add other than I'm super proud of my entire staff and the entire team up there. Without you all playing your own individual parts, this campaign would not have been the success it was. It was in a short time frame. You all came together, went above and beyond, and I'm so, so appreciative. And I'm also appreciative to the veteran-owned businesses who have chose Calvert County for their home and also for their willingness to participate in the campaign. So awesome job, everyone. I'm very proud of you. Really nice work. Thank you very much.
Erin Lowe, Senior Communications Program Manager. Just to add to what Julie said, a lot of what CMR does is behind the scenes, but I saw what you did. You did a lot of editing, a lot of script writing, recording, and after-hours work, and I just want to say thank you, and well-deserved. Congratulations.
All right.
Sorry.
There you go. Somebody's had to.
Let him out.
Push in just a little bit.
You want us to come in or come
You're, shift to the right just a smidge.
Kevin, I believe the term is scooch.
I'm learning here, okay. Kevin, don't move. I think we're good. One more just for, okay, we're good. Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next item on the agenda is consent. There are 4 items under consent. First is Department of Human Resources, Calvert County Police Accountability Board bylaws. Second, Department of Parks and Recreation, Town of North Beach, local parks and playground infrastructure funding. Item 3, Department of Public Safety, budget adjustment request BA number 189, advanced life support supplies bulk ordering. Item 4, Department of Planning and Zoning, Environmental Commission bylaws amendment. Are there any objections to the items listed under consent? Hearing none, those items will be adopted as presented. Next item on the agenda is new business. That would be item 1 is Department of Finance and Budget, review of Board of Education FY 24 to 29 6-year CIP. Good morning, ladies.
Morning.
Good morning. I brought one of your favorite people.
It's that time again. Wow, you know, the time just flies, you know.
I know you've been waiting and waiting. Okay, sorry.
How many more AC units we need this year?
I'll let Shishita answer that when it's her turn.
I got a bunch of fans out back. I was anticipating you coming.
Window units on sale at Walmart.
Right.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm
morning.
Veronica Atkinson. I'm the Capital Projects Analyst for Finance and Budget. Joining me today is Shishita Warner.
Oh, hello. I think most of you know me pretty well. I'm Suchita Warner, Director of School Construction for Calvert County Public Schools. Good afternoon.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sharon,
Hi, I'm Sharon Strand, the Director of Finance and Budget.
thank you.
I'll read the memo. Background. Finance and Budget and the Board of Education will present a review of their proposed FY24 6-year Capital Improvement Plan, CIP, to the Board. Discussion. Finance and Budget reviewed the Board of Education's FY 2024 to FY 2029 6-year staff recommended budget, CIP requests totaling $1,112,288. Oh, here I'm way off already. $112,288,676.
I like the first one better.
Right.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that was
We can approve that
subconscious.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Motion.
This amount reflects a 17% increase from the FY23 to FY28 6-year adopted budget. Another change is the prior year 6-year CIP, FY23 through FY28, projected the replacement of Northern Middle School at $52 million. These cost projections have increased by $5.7 million. The 6-year CIP for the Board of Education reflects the replacement of Northern Middle School, which will begin in FY24 with design costs, and the replacement of Calvert Elementary, projected to begin in FY28. Fiscal impact. The fiscal impact for the Board of Education's 6-year CIP staff recommended budget reflects funding from the state of $59,158,960, leaving $53,129,716 to be funded by the county over the 6 years. The county funding portion is broken out below. PAYGO, or general fund, is $469,020. Debt or bond is $44,432,266. Excise tax is $8,228,430. Total county contribution is $53,129,716. This presentation is to prepare the board for the 6-year capital improvement plan costs for the Board of Education and seek the board's direction on those projects. If the board will bear with me, I would like to do a quick overview of the capital improvement plan before we begin the Board of Education CIP requests. The capital improvement plan, referred to as CIP, is a multi-year planning and budget process that assists the county in prioritizing current and future needs. The capital improvement projects plan encompasses the functional departments. Each department submits a 6-year CIP plan in September for the upcoming budget year, in this case, the fiscal year FY 2024. Only the first year of the 6-year plan is adopted, meaning only that year's funding is available to spend. The next 5 years is issued for planning purposes and not authorized by the BOCC until the annual budget for those years is adopted. The CIP budget presentations are broken out over 6 BOCC meetings. This gives each department an opportunity to present their project requests. A capital project is defined as the purchase of land, the development and/or construction of a new facility or building, or the purchase of a major piece of equipment. The county has further defined a project to include a value greater than $25,000 and a project with a multi-year or service life. The CIP budget is different than the operating budget because all adopted funding for the CIP projects can be rolled forward into the other years. The operating budget's funding must be utilized in the year that it was adopted. There are 2 CIP categories: governmental projects and enterprise projects. I'm sure you all have learned a lot about enterprise projects on your first day. The governmental projects are supported by property taxes, income taxes, excise tax, bonds, and grants. Of course, the enterprise fund projects are utility-based and include solid waste, water, and sewer projects. The enterprise funds are different in that the projects are self-supported financially by the users of the services. Do we have any questions?
Mm-hmm. But I'll wait till slide 6.
Thank you. Hopefully that's one of yours.
It is.
Slide 3. Governmental projects are funded by 4 sources: general fund or PAYGO, general obligation bonds. The governmental projects bonds are 15-year bonds. Excise tax, this is funding that is limited and can only be used for schools, recreational resources, and roads or transportation. The 4th funding source is grants. Grants are financially supported by the federal and/or state government. The enterprise funds represent 2 funds, the Water and Sewer Fund and the Solid Waste Fund. The user fees, capital connection fees, and utility fees are part of what supports the enterprise fund. They are also eligible for federal and state grants or low-interest loans. General obligation bonds for the water and sewer are for 25 years. Solid waste bonds are for 15 years. These bonds are repaid by the users of the utilities. Okay, now we'll start to get to the review of the Board of Education CIP request. So we're going to review their 6-year CIP request. We're going to do a concentration on FY 2024, and then we'll wrap up with a broad view of all of the department's FY24 revenue and expenses. Education support breakdown. The Board of Education is a little different than the other functional departments in that the Board of Education is also supported by the state. So we have our county portion, and then we have the state portion. The county support for FY 2024 is $2,226,040. The state support is $4,293,200. It's a total for FY 24 request, $6,519,240. The 6-year CIP breakdown, their 6-year county support is $53,129,716. The 6-year total support is that would be the state support, I'm sorry, is $59,158,960, giving us a 6-year CIP total of $112,288,676. I'm going to hand the presentation over to Shashida.
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. First of all, I wanted to congratulate Commissioner Grasso, Commissioner Cox, and Commissioner Ireland on your election. And secondly, I do want to thank Commissioner Hans and Commissioner Hart. I know I come before you every year, and I know you love to see me. I do want.
They made it back. Oh, God. Oh, man.
I do, on the behalf of Calvert County Public Schools, want to thank you for your commitment to the school's capital projects, as you have supported our projects in the past. I do have an update for all of you. The new Beach Elementary School, the new building will be ready for students this fall.
Oh, really?
The final project will be wrapping up this winter. So you will all, of course, be invited to the dedication. And Commissioner Hans, I do remember that you wanted to see a ribbon and a scissors for a ribbon cutting. So we will see what we can do to accommodate that. So just wanted to start on a happy note there. And
We spent
now
$50 million, we should at least cut a ribbon, right?
we can. I think we can manage that. And now to our CIP presentation. So first of all, as Veronica talked about, I just wanted to provide you with some quick background, some information regarding how the funding is shared for our capital projects. Most of the school system's capital improvement projects are eligible for state funding. The state share for these projects is officially 56%. So for every dollar that is spent on capital projects that are eligible for state funding, 56 cents of every dollar does come from the state. But
That just changed, right?
the 56%?
Yeah. Wasn't
I-
that lower?
Yeah, I
Seemed
thought
to
it
me
went
when
up.
I
Yes,
first came in,
yes.
went up.
It-
we were paying more than the state, but they made some changes.
I thought they were
I-
48, if memory serves.
I don't
No?
know if it's ever been lower than 50, as long as I've been aware, the baseline, the floor has always been 50%.
Okay.
So.
Because they
the
wouldn't
ma-
pay for design or.
That's correct, that's
engineering.
correct. So when you do the calculation of the ineligibles, we ended up paying really around 56 or so, even though they officially paid 53% at the time. That did go up to 56%. They recalculate that on a 3-year cycle. So we are going to be recalculated, so we'll see what we end up with. But right now, for our projects that we, at least our major construction projects, when we lock in for funding, we're going to be locking in at the 56%. So they do have some costs that are considered ineligible. Those are, when they back that out, sometimes that percentage goes down. And as Commissioner Hans, you just noted, they do pay for design now, so they share in that design expense. They also share in eligible furniture, fixtures, and equipment. They haven't given us a list on what those eligible expenses specifically come out to, but there is at least participation on that basis as well right now. One thing I wanted to mention again, I've mentioned it before, but there is a program through the Maryland State Authority, the Build to Learn Act, that has allowed us to leverage funding. In essence, it is coming through the state, it's being funneled over to us. This allows us to leverage eligible state funding that we're going to use towards Northern Middle School. This allows us to get Northern Middle started early, and we can tap into it for design as well. So it's not just construction funding. So this allows us to keep the local share where we had originally shown it, but allow us to start the project quicker. So essentially, we would begin design of Northern Middle School in FY 2024 instead of waiting till FY 2025. So we'll start with the Education CIP FY 2024 through 2029 slide that you see before you. This is broken down by the project name and the funding year, starting with prior year funding. The columns that follow break down our funding requests from FY 24 through 29. So of the two construction projects highlighted on this page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go over both projects for that entire cycle, just to provide you with a snapshot of what we're looking at.
Shashida, do you know what
Yes.
what the capacity is of the current Northern Middle and what the actual population is today?
Right now, so the capacity of Northern Middle right now is 680. That's the state-rated capacity currently. And the population, right off the top of my head, I don't know. I know it's in the 600s currently. But I can get you the exact number as to what it is, what the enrollment is this month. I believe it's in the
Because-
mid-600s.
You can't build a new school greater than current capacity or the current capacity of this building?
What the state does in terms of the calculation is they look at the subject school, which is the school that you're going in for proposed construction, and they look at 7-year enrollment projections, but they look at the adjacent schools as well. So it depends what the projections are for the adjacent schools also, so it's really the aggregate of everything, and then you take the net. And so you can build bigger, but they do have you kind of capped out on the low end. You can't build smaller. So for example, you can't really build a school for, say, 200 students. It wouldn't really be economically feasible. So they will kind of sort of put you at a floor for that school's capacity, but you can certainly go up based on any other enrollment projections that are subject to go up at the adjacent schools.
But they do limit how far you can go up, though.
Yes.
Well,
They
it
do-
would depend on the adjacent schools and the enrollment projections there. So depending on, say, Windy Hill Middle School, if that is projected to go up significantly, and if Northern Middle could absorb those students, then they will allow you to build bigger. So it really depends on the enrollment projections.
Thank you.
Sure. So just to provide you with an update on Northern Middle, right now, we are in the feasibility study phase. That had been funded by the Board of County Commissioners a couple of years ago, the funding for the feasibility study. So we have a team currently that is looking at options for replacement, renovation, plus partial addition. So we're studying a couple of options right now. We expect to wrap up the feasibility study. That will go before the board, it'll be presented, and then we anticipate that design would start April or May of this year. So it's not going to be far behind. So the FY 2024 funds that you see, the $2,924,000 that you see in the 2024 column are for design. Of those, $2,722,000 are being requested from state funds, and $202,000 are the county share. So I just wanted to make a note of that.
So Sachita, on that, because that's my biggest question. So when I see the 57,855 at the end of the slide,
Oh,
like that's total project, correct?
yes.
How much is ours?
The county share.
46%. 25.
Let's see, I would have to calculate it out.
Because see, that's, and I'm not trying to be a stickler, but when, say, asking for approval, and especially for my new members, you know, when you're looking at something, you're not just approving 24. You're walking down a
Sure.
road to completion. So I think it's essential to know what the out-of-pocket cost is on the county side, that obligation. But then also too, you know, we've seen these building projections come back. I mean, building cost 20, 30%. You know, it's about being smart too. I mean, what do we know what the square footage was off the top of your head, Beach Elementary, what that was, and then what they're projecting for Northern Middle?
Yes, the Beach Elementary square footage ended up being in the 73.
No, how much per square foot?
Oh, how much the cost ended up being per square foot? I believe it was $426 per square foot
What
is
are
what
you
it came
hearing
out
for
to.
Northern?
Well, we are over a year away from bidding this out. And as you know, it's very difficult right now to calculate where that cost is going to come in. But we are hearing on projects that are being bid right now that they could be around the $500 per square foot. Now, the state, what they do is they look at, and I think I've spoken about this before, but they look at where the regional and national costs are, and they adjust that cost index. So their share is going to be based on what the actual construction costs are coming in at. They look at that average. So that cost per square foot of their participation, it will go up if costs go up
But
as
still
well.
56% though.
That is correct.
So if the
It'll be
project goes up,
56%.
our piece still goes up too. So if the square footage was 400 and say now it's 5, 20% increase or so? 25%. That's considerable.
Correct. What I usually try to do is with our costs, I always try to make sure that I have included for any kind of escalation to be able to account for potential costs. One thing that I did want to note in terms of county share, I can tell you what the state share is that we're asking for. It's a little over 30 million, so,
So that would have us about
27,
28.
28,
yeah, yeah.
without any escalator.
That would be based on the square footage and what the cost per square foot paid right now is. That's correct. Right.
Because, you know, my caution is once we walk down that road, we're locked in.
Well, I think the one thing that I can say to you is, for example, for Beach Elementary School, you know, the commitment that the Board of County Commissioners has, there are obviously one of two ways we can go about it, right? So we did this with Northern High School, and then we did something different with Beach Elementary School. With Northern High School, the costs came in significantly high. We went back, we redesigned, because that is what we had to do. But then at the end of that bidding cycle, when we were going to award, we came back before the Board of County Commissioners, and the Board of County Commissioners put in money towards bridging that gap, as did the Board of Ed, through fund balance. So we did that for that particular project. For Beach Elementary School, we again came in a little bit over budget, but we developed a list of 29 value engineering items. We took a couple of million off, and then we were able to get some funds to help bridge the gap. So that did not come out of the Board of County Commissioners' pockets. Your amount that was requested remained where, you know, at the requested amount. So, you know, these are some of the things that we have to do, and we would have to have that discussion.
Commissioner Hart's right, you know, we're gonna build the school. And we'll have a better idea once you do the A&E.
Sure.
Where we're at.
Right.
And we'll figure that path out, but, you know, we've looked at the school, we're gonna build the school.
Right.
it's not like it's gonna come in and we say, oh, no, we're just not gonna do it. That's not
It's,
gonna happen.
right, it's when's
you know.
it smartest
it would-
and, you know,
And like, just like with our own building, you know, we've had to make adjustments, they're gonna do the same thing. So it's-
Absolutely.
It's just, it is what it is, you know. And
Right.
that, they're, you know, the feasibility study, they're not gonna renovate that building.
no.
We know
no.
that from our tour.
Right,
Because
right.
it's built under the old open space concept,
Well, it's the
which
original
now
building.
it's not any, nobody likes that. So we're
Right.
not gonna remodel that school, we're gonna build a new school. And, once the A&E comes in, we'll see where we're at and figure out how we're gonna move forward.
Right.
I'm sorry. It's-
But I'd like to hear that there's a trigger point that we don't have to pull the trigger if all of a sudden, you know, the cost
Yeah.
of goods are, we do have a little bit of,
With Beach, as she said, we went through
Yeah.
that with Beach
yeah.
when they came in over, and we'll just,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, we try to develop as much flexibility so that, you know, I mean, I don't want to be in a position where I come back to you and I say, boy, this is gonna cost, you know, 10 million more dollars that I need to request from you.
don't
I'm gonna
want to,
try to
but
do
you seem to do
everything
it all
I
the
can
time.
to not come back to you.
Go with your
seem
gut.
very
Go with
comfortable
your
with it.
gut.
I
That
mean, you
first
know.
voice is right. No, don't.
I don't want to, but see you in a month.
I will do everything I can in my power to do what we can to basically,
I trust
you know,
you.
value engineer as much
I
as
don't
we
know
can.
if Mike trusts you, but I trust you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Are there any other questions before we move on?
Nope, that
to-
was my,
Okay.
I just, you know, when you see the 57,855, I knew that's not all us, but I just wanted
Correct.
to hear you say.
It
it's
is not all you,
us.
yes.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so, just to quickly kind of take you through FY '25 through 28 of Northern Middle. So when design wraps up and construction begins, in FY '25, you can see that we're requesting the balance of the county share for the design, and that's going to be in the amount of $706,000. The construction allocation that you see for $21,508,399 under the construction line, $18,972,199 of that is coming from the state. So the county share in FY '25 would be $2.5 million. Okay, so it's $2,536,200. In FY '26 and FY '27 are when construction is really in full swing on the project. So there's a total of $15,207,181 that you see in FY '26 and $14,360,500 in FY '27 that are budgeted for construction cash flow purposes. Again, this is shared cost between the state and the county, so the county share in FY '26 is $8.4 million and $12.8 million in FY '27. In FY 2027, we'll also be requesting funds towards furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Unlike Beach Elementary, which did not get state participation for design or furniture, fixtures, and equipment, now the state is going to contribute. So of the $2,241,000 that you see under the equipment line, $1.3 million is the state share, and $880,000
Can't we
is
just
the
get the
county
kids
share.
at the Career Center to build us some desks?
That's an idea.
Oh,
What a project, right?
my goodness, that would take quite a long time.
Just think how well trained they'd be when they're done.
They would. The carpentry department would
They have
certainly
job
would be.
skills, they get a
Right?
job right away.
I guess they could build the new school too, the masonry
Oh,
and the electricians.
Yeah, there you go.
It only took a few years, but now we're on the same page.
Oh, my goodness.
Camera's on.
Yeah.
It's on record.
We have an HVAC department too. Okay, so, early in FY 2028, the construction wraps up, so the $907,920 that you see in FY '28 is the county share, so that is 100% county. Let's move on to the second project. I do want to say something about this. This isn't just Calvert Elementary School. The second project listed on this slide is for future replacement, but it'll actually be a project that will look at Calvert Elementary School, at that facility in combination with Calvert Country School. So a comprehensive study really needs to be done in combination for both facilities because they both share a well, they share an adjoining property. We want to study options for what we can do. We understand Calvert Country, although we replaced the HVAC equipment, it is a facility that is really quite getting up in age. And so we're going to be looking at options for replacement facilities for both buildings, or perhaps a combination of replacement and renovation. It really needs to be studied in combination, really through, options for, do we look at a replacement? Do we then swing students into the other facility while another is being renovated, or maybe it's a potential partial renovation replacement? So really, it's too early right now, but I wanted to just point out that that is not just Calvert Elementary. It's going to be a combination of both. So what you will notice, if you look at FY 2028, there is design $4.2 million. Again, this is in combination for both facilities, not just the one. 2.9 million will be the state share and 1.2 million is the local
So
share.
you should include that in your description.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
somebody was looking at that,
Right.
they would, if it's gonna be two, unless you're gonna only build one building.
No, we don't plan on just building
You
one
should
building.
break those. I mean, I understand
wonder
the
how-
study.
Right,
but-
right. I wonder how we can do that on the sheets. I think we'll just have to work together, because they're separate sheets for separate buildings, so, I think certainly for the CIP we can.
Because somebody
move the
looking at
line.
that from the outside might say, you're gonna spend $4.2
Right.
million to study
Study.
Calvert Elementary School?
Right, right.
So,
Okay.
I mean, you explained it to us, but just moving forward in the written description, there should be some language in there that spells that out.
How old is Calvert Country School?
It's old.
Yeah.
I would have to go back and take a look. Yeah.
It's got to be long overdue.
Calvert Country, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It dates back.
It was the original elementary school.
Yeah.
50s, I believe, or so, yeah.
It's the 50s.
I have to go back and
yeah.
double
I
check, but
mean-
yeah, the original, the building is
Before
quite
I was
old.
born. It's amazing that's still
He said,
standing.
"No way."
It must have been built really good.
So, yeah, we can certainly do that, and then I think we'll have to kind of figure out how we divide that up in the backup sheets for the two buildings.
God forbid you may retire and somebody coming behind you might say, man, they gave us $4.2 million
Right.
to design Calvert Elementary School.
We'll make
Yeah.
sure it's in the description.
Yeah,
Because we look
please.
back at the descriptions, particularly if somebody wants to reuse funding that they've already received for
Right.
something different, we go back and review the description. If
Right.
the description does not specify that, then they come and visit all of you.
Yeah, well, in 28, I could be gone.
Yeah. Well, we'll visit someone, hopefully I'll go.
Construction funds would be required in FY 2029, as you can see, with 9.1 million of the total 20.6 million requested from the county. So 9.1 million would be the county share of what you see up there. In kind of summarizing the education CIP, the 82.7 million that you see in the total CIP funds for education construction, from FY 2024 through FY 2029, the county share comes to 37 million, with the balance of the requested funds coming from the state.
Just a bit.
Why is that percentage different, just out of curiosity?
Because it's a snapshot in time, so it doesn't, some projects are, like, for example, the Calvert Elementary School, Calvert Country School hasn't finished up. It's when everything catches up and a project closes out, that's when those percentages will actually align closer to what the county share and the state share is. But they may look lopsided in the county's favor or in the state's
Depending on
favor,
what's
as you're
eligible
kind of looking at that snapshot of that 6-year slice in time.
Okay, thank you.
And you also have to
Absolutely.
remember, you're talking 5 years out, and who knows what construction costs are gonna be in 5 years out.
Correct.
It's just, you know.
Or
That's
they may change, the state may change again and pick up some additional items, like we're they wouldn't pay for design, so we were picking that up completely. But now they've changed that, and of course she's saying FF&E, now they're picking up some of that. So that helps us a lot.
That's great
Takes a
news,
lot
because
of
that, you know,
burden
that
off.
always makes my eye twitch. I can't stand study it, then tell you it, and then charge it.
Right.
You know, especially in some existing things that have been, you know, forever. So does that apply to HVAC?
We're getting there.
The design,
Yeah.
yes, they will
Thank
pay
God.
for design, absolutely.
Thank God.
I know. Yes, it's really good. It is very good. I mean,
Thank
obviously with
God.
HVAC, you don't have, you know, furniture, fixtures, equipment, but at least the design does get covered.
But you know, once that puts the state into paying for some of that, then it also regulates some of the stuff that they're requesting as well. Because it's easy to say you're gonna do this, this, and this if you're not paying for it. But now that they're paying for some of it, puts a little interest in, so, no, that is good on so many levels, so, good.
I agree, it is, it's great. Okay, we can move on to the next slide now. So that wraps up construction. We will go over the education maintenance. There are
Mike's
two
favorite.
slides
Yeah.
that are education maintenance, but what I will do, unlike I did for the construction, I will focus on the FY 2024 column. So we'll go through this particular slide and the next slide with FY 24, and then I will do a very broad overview of 25 through 29. So, we will go in the order of listing, so I'll start with the Brooks Administration Building. If you look at FY '24, you will notice the $1,135,000. We have several projects planned for the Brooks Building. This includes replacement of the HVAC system, serving the perimeter offices, the windows, as well as installation of an elevator. We do not have an elevator in that building, and that is problematic, especially as special education students are serviced within the building. So there's certainly a need for the elevator to traverse the 3 floors. The projects are broken out separately on the slide, however, total of $1,135,000 is requested for that. Next, we have the Mary Harrison Center roofing. You can see, it says, that says HVAC.
It doesn't look bad so far, to be honest.
Yeah, so, the
This is not even
existing,
HVAC, but they called it that. That's
I
right.
know.
let me see something.
Just to get you.
I think so.
It's probably subconscious on my part.
Yeah, it's the re-roofing. It's not HVAC. It's re-roofing.
I'm like,
So,
this will be boring on a re-roofing.
Yeah, I know, right?
so actually, that $1,650,000 that you see there, $726,000 of it would be requested from the county. The balance of the funds is actually, we already have been approved for that because we're getting that through the Healthy School Facility Fund grant. So we already have the state share approved. We can go to the next slide because those are the projects that we have on this slide. So the second sheet, or the second slide of the education maintenance, we have a couple of more projects. The first one is Patuxent Elementary. $150,240 will be needed for the design of the HVAC systemic project that will replace all of the equipment with the exception of the chiller, which was replaced in 2019. Of the total request, $16,240 of the design funding is being requested from the county because we're going to request the balance of it later. We're going to try to forward fund from the state share, from those coffers first. So the balance is requested in 2025. Moving on to the next project, you'll see $85,000 listed under Patuxent High School. That's for design services of a new field house that we have in the CIP. Moving on, Plum Point Middle School. This is the HVAC that is going to occur this summer. The allocation that you see, the $434,800, is actually 100% coming from the state, so there is no county share there whatsoever. The next project that you see is Sunderland Elementary School. I want to note, the $140,200 is for design for a future project that you see in FY 2026 if you kind of go across rows. I want to note that at Sunderland Elementary School, what we did in working with county staff is back in FY 2023, in order to lessen our requests in terms of CIP, we pulled out some critical components of Sunderland Elementary School that needed to be replaced right away and pushed the balance of the project out into FY 2026. So we are, in fact, on February 1, we are opening bids for the chiller replacement and the rooftop unit that have been very, very problematic at that school. And we're planning on doing that work this summer. So the project that you see here is really the balance of the equipment that's been pushed out so that we can complete the rest of the HVAC within that school. So I'm just kind of going over what the allocation is. The $140,200 back to the FY 2024, $61,800 is being requested from the county with the balance coming from the state. So that actually wraps up the FY 2020.
Can we go back to Patuxent?
Yes.
'Cause you've got-
Patuxent Elementary or?
The high school.
I'm sorry,
The
Patuxent High
Stormwater
School.
Field House.
Oh, well, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And you're good. You're going to answer my question before
Yes.
I even ask it.
I thought,
I've been
when
here
you said
too long.
stormwater, I thought you were saying, oh, it's
So,
for stormwater.
those are two completely different things for me, stormwater and building a new field house. And when you look further out, I know you're focused on 24, but when you look further out, that's a pretty good string. Can't we break out the stormwater from the field house? Because in my mind, they're completely separate.
I could add another line and just
Yeah.
put it
Could you
in there.
please?
Yep. Sure.
Because right now, when I looked at it, I don't know what stormwater and what is the field house. I'm hoping the field house is the 2.8. But it would be helpful if we knew.
It is. Stormwater is not 2.8.
No. So if you could break that out for us,
Yes.
please. Thank you. Okay, thank you. You can move on.
Absolutely. So that actually wraps up our education maintenance portion, the FY 2024. If we go to the out years, rather than going through each of the projects for FY 25 through 29, I'm just going to note kind of an overview of our CIP in that most of the education maintenance comes out of 3 different types of projects within our CIP. The first one is Commissioner Hart's favorite, HVAC projects. The second is re-roofing and window replacement projects. We certainly have many of those, but those kind of are our top 2. And then we also have site projects such as repaving, stormwater management, pond improvements. The fourth item that we began adding last year was athletic tracks and field houses, as you know. I do want to mention that there has been ongoing interest in installing artificial turf fields at our high school stadium facilities. Currently, these are not in our CIP. They're nowhere in that snapshot that you see. But this really does require a further discussion between our Board of Education and you folks, the Board of County Commissioners. As you know, the CIP process really in earnest internally starts in August, so we really started this process in August of last year, and our CIP is due to the state because they need to look at each and every single county in Baltimore City in looking at that capital budget. So that is due to them beginning of October. So at this point, our CIP certainly does not reflect anything with artificial turf fields, and certainly it's a conversation that I just wanted to mention. If there are changes or anything along those lines, it would have to be part of a larger discussion.
So Cheetah, on that, since the state is now doing some funding for design and everything, are there funding from the state, like for athletics and stuff like that, that could be potentially used for those projects?
So usually the state funding is really allocated for educational facilities. Athletic facilities, they do not participate in. So that does end up being it does end up being 100% local share.
It is a shame, when they look at education, they think just books. And there's arts, there's athletics, There's, you know, I mean, you know, not every kid is great with books. Not every kid is great on the field or performing arts, but it's the total package, right? And it is a shame that it's a narrow scope like that. I mean, athletics build bonds and friendships for a lifetime, you know, and for them to not even put that in there for consideration is a shame.
Right, yeah, that's kind of been the way that the state CIP has been since it was developed, you know, back in the 70s, so, and I think a large part of that is the fact that the CIP from the state really hasn't gone up much. I think, you know, potentially when they first started, maybe it was 200 million, and then over, you know, up until, gosh, maybe 5 years ago, it was just 250 million, so that doesn't even keep up with inflation. So there are all of these requests, so I think that they have to make a decision on how much they can really give and what they will give towards, so I think it's just part of
And, you know, it doesn't
trying
make
to-
it right, but you don't get an entire community to pour out to watch a spelling bee. You should, but it doesn't happen. Have the local football game that night against a rival somewhere, and it brings the whole community together. You know, athletic events have just always done that, and for them to, I don't want to say act like it doesn't exist, but how much motivation is for a child to, you know, hey, to perform in the band, your grades need to be here, or you know, in athletics and stuff. I mean, it's just, I just think I think it all counts. You know, I think it's all just as important, but when you made the statement, you know, they look at it as education. I see athletics programs as education as well, because there's life skills that are learned that you might not can learn from that book. You know, it's working with somebody that you've never met before. You know, it's a whole lot of maturity when some kid you don't know busts you in the mouth with a football helmet, and you know, that's just part of the sport. You know, I mean, you know what I mean? You know, we're playing basketball and you
Sure.
get slammed or something. I mean, there's a what's the word they say? Character building. You know, so yeah, I just wish they would value athletics and arts as well as education. You know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that comes from kind of thinking about what occurs you know, during the school day and what facilities get used during the school day. I'm not sure. You know, I wasn't around back then, I was around back then, but I was young.
Well, the mindset was different. You know, I mean, you look at, you know, the mindset was just go outside and play type thing to where, you know, I mean, it's, so.
Right.
But I value the discussion though, and, maybe to talk about in the future.
Absolutely. So that really does wrap up my portion of the CIP presentation for now. So just kind of emphasizing again, when you look at that $112,288,676, that's a huge number. The county allocation of that during the 6-year period is $53.1 million, with the state contributing to the rest. And I'll hand it back to Veronica at this point.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So to wrap up, this is an overview of where we're at right now with all of the departments for the FY 2024. The yellow line shows their total expenses. Then we have their revenue, PAYGO, what we're asking for, or where we're at right now with bonds, and state funding, and excise tax. And again, excise tax can only be applied to roads, parks, and schools. It helps a lot because I can take it off of PAYGO when I push over to excise tax, so. And then, of course, you see enterprise fund, and we're at 82 million right now for FY '24. Okay, I will see you all, yay for you guys, on the 31st, and we will review public safety.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Old Business, Department of Parks and Recreation, Director Nazal. This should go quick.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Shannon Nazal, Director of Parks and Recreation. So I will go ahead and read the memo on the Cove Point Park Tennis and Pickleball Court budget adjustment. Background, in the 2022 legislative session, the Maryland General Assembly and the Governor adopted a state budget that includes an allocation of $1 million in grant funds to Calvert County for shovel-ready park infrastructure projects managed by the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. The Department of Parks and Recreation currently has prioritized funding for this cycle for the replacement of the tennis courts at Cove Point Park. On September 13th, 2022, the Board of County Commissioners approved the submittal of the grant application for this project. On November 16th, 2022, the Maryland Board of Public Works approved the grant application for the Cove Point Park Tennis and Pickleball Court project in the amount of $700,000 with no required match. Discussion. A budget adjustment of this amount should be accounted for in the FY 2023 budget. The budget adjustment requires a public hearing because it is more than $150,000. A public hearing was held on January 10th, 2023, and the record was closed. In the memo, it says there were 2 public comments, but there were actually 3 public comments received in concern about this project causing the removal of a baseball field. However, there is no baseball field being removed to complete the replacement of the current tennis courts or design of pickleball courts. The Cove Point Park Master Plan does show an eventual relocation of 2 baseball fields to the front of the park to create a baseball quad of fields. However, that is currently not funded. Fiscal impact, if approved, amends the adopted budget for fiscal year 2023 to appropriate and allocate $700,000 for the replacement of the tennis courts at Cove Point Park, as well as the additional design of restrooms and pickleball facilities in the same area to account 431103-45006, reimbursable by the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. Conclusion recommendation. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve BA number 028 CIP and sign the related budget resolution. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Motion?
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve BA number 028 CIP and sign the related budget resolution.
Second.
Have motion and second that we accept the state grant and adopt and enact the resolution approving budget adjustment BA 028 CIP. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you,
Director.
Commissioners.
Thank you.
That brings us to work session, Office of the County Administrator.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Willis, County Administrator. To my right is Director Carrie Dahl of Public Works, and to his right is Deputy Director James Ritter of our enterprise funds, which include both solid waste and water and sewerage. So we're here today to talk about Resolution 3216, a little bit about the memo itself. Resolution 3216 was approved back in September of 2016, repealing 2 resolutions, 2915 and 0214. The core tenets of the resolutions address really the fundamental practices of addressing water and sewage allocation policy and measured in equivalent dwelling units. Discussion, the current audit process, quarterly billing is less than optimal billing technology, which limited full transparency to residential and commercial customers. Staff is seeking the Board of County Commissioners to direct and repeal 3216 and replace it with a new resolution that will allow for, at a minimum, some of the following. I do want to make a point that while we're seeking guidance, we may not get it exact. We want to get it exact and as we move forward. So what we say here today and the authority that we request, as we come back before the board with additional work sessions to make this happen, we may propose at that time a tweaking of the guidance that would then have to be obviously approved by the board at that time as well. But we want to make sure we get it right going forward. But we're going to be looking for authorization to prepare, present, and execute updated water and sewage audit material. The elimination of additional EDUs for residential users. The elimination of additional EDUs for residential customers. And we want to take a look at adding the pricing guide for tiering out the additional costs once you go above that adopted number, which currently right now is 18,000 gallons per quarter. So that may change, whatever that changes to, if so directed. That tier process would kick off at that point. At this point, we don't know of a fiscal impact, but that will come forward as we move into additional work sessions. The conclusion recommendation is we're requesting again the direction to repeal and replace Resolution 3216, eliminating additional EDUs for residential customers for both water and sewerage. Direct transition to a tiered billing guide supported with best available technology. Request the reallocation of unexecuted American Rescue Plan Act. It's the ARPA money that was federally mandated and authorized, and as you're aware, we have monies that have already been approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and it was phased out over several years. So we do have monies that are already allotted. That money we are capable of spending ARPA money on water and sewerage as so directed by the Board of County Commissioners. So that is a place that we'll be seeking funding if so directed. And also, we really want to create a more robust and outreaching and customer-friendly educational program, not simply how to save water, but the impact of saving water, the impact or a better understanding of what it costs to maintain both the towers that hold the water, the wells that go in the ground, how we get the infrastructure to the residential and commercial customers, as well as what happens to it after that. It's mandated by state. It costs money, and we need to figure out how to get there and be fiscally responsible while providing the best customer service possible. So all of that is going to be regurgitated here in just a minute, but our citizens can follow along in the presentation as we go forward. So again, Resolution 3216 is what we're looking at. The purpose is, we really do want to recreate that professional outreaching communication with our customers. We want to do right by them, both for the service we provide and the fiscal management that we should maintain. We want to go back and look at 3216 and break that apart and create a resolution that makes sense on a couple of different levels. One is how we manage our EDUs, water capacity, sewer authorization in general, but then how we go back and do an audit so that our citizens, not just the customers of the system, of the users, but citizen general know that we're managing the water coming out of the ground. That educational outpush is also going to be something that we push out to citizens that use their own well and their own septic. So that'll be a more robust outreach, not just for customers of our water sewer systems, but for citizens that have wells and septic tanks to make them last as long as possible. The path forward, again, reauthorization to take a look at that resolution. We've discussed that already. Eliminating a requirement for residential EDUs for residential customers. Reevaluating the measurement of what is an EDU. So right now, I think we all know that we have a standard that an EDU, an equivalent dwelling unit, is equal to 200 gallons. That's a unit of measurement that helps us account for the amount of EDUs that we can provide to our citizens based on the authorized water allocation that we can pull out of the ground. That's also equal to or very similar to the amount of authorized capacity that we're allowed to dose or to discharge back into the environment. So it's critical for us to know where we are in our EDU count. That's one of the reasons for the audit. But keep in mind, the audit does several things. It's just not the number of EDUs that we're using. It's also the number of gallons that we're pulling out of the ground at each of our well sites, and the number of gallons that we're pushing through our treatment facilities at each of our treatment facilities. So that 200 gallons, we'll take a look at it at your direction. It may be the right number, it may not be, but we'll bring that information back to you. Consider the capacity of the 18,000 gallons. I mean, that's directly a derivative of if you're using 200 gallons a day per EDU, then over 90 days, you're right at the 18,000 gallons a day. If, for example, you change that number, we would need to use that number as we go forward, especially because we're looking at creating a tiered rate for individuals that, with their understanding, if they go above that 18,000 or whatever that number is, that they'll receive a different billing rate beyond that number. So with that said, whatever that number is, that's what we'll use when we start to look at a tiered billing. So we've got a slide in here that looks at tiered billing, and the reason it's important is that tiered billing is not new. Even within Calvert County or surrounding counties, what you see in blue on this slide, or the lighter color blue, is Beach's Water Co-op, Chesapeake Ranch Estates, North Beach, and Western Shores. They're all within the county. They use a tiered process already. But we also have Charles County, Metcom is in St. Mary's County, and then you have WSSC, which is the water, or the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, which is really where Calvert County became educated many years ago. They were the foundation of what we used to get started long before any of us were sitting here, and we've had to kind of tweak the guidance that they provided because simply it didn't match with us as we created our own historical data. So we will be looking at that as well with your guidance to bring back before you. Customer enhancement, and that's truly just our smart outreach, our customer-friendly outreach. Listening to their point of view before, and really just making sure that we're on the same wavelength when we put this information out. When they see it, it's not going to be the first time that they've heard about it, whether that means a town hall meeting or a flyer that goes out or in their quarterly bill, or it's a commercial that our communications and media relations department puts together so that they have a full understanding of where they stand within what the billing process is and where they stand with what are they actually using. So we're going to make that as robust as possible. It costs money to maintain this system. It's hugely expensive. The cost of water is one thing. The cost of sewer maintenance is quite the other. And there's a direct correlation in pulling water out of the ground and the need to dose it, but the cost between those two entities are extremely different, with sewage treatment being much more costly. So we want the citizens to know, what they're up against, and that billing format is what we're hoping to use to help educate and communicate with our customers. Here's an example. We did speak with SMECO, and we're using their particular billing as an example. And the reason for that is, and this costs money. I mean, to get to here, it's not, they don't just turn it over to us. We have to develop it, design it, create it, pay for it, et cetera. But it will give at a fingertip the opportunity for any customer to go in, look at their bill, and see exactly where they stand. And they can break it down by day, by week, by month. I mean, that's something that we'll be able to provide. Our goal is to be able to provide that in the future. So it's easier to read, easier to get to, easier to communicate back to the department when you have a question. And, that's the goal. So, like I said, it's not, we don't have that capability on our bill right now, and we understand that we need to make improvements. There's a couple of ways that you can try to get there. Currently, we have utilized best technologies. Of course, that's what we want to do anyway. So meter reading, when I first got here, now 23 years ago, I believe, there was a lot more foot traffic. carrying iPads around for those meters that were already upgraded, but we had quite a few of our meters back in those days that didn't have that updated service. So we've been continually trying to come up to par with technology. If you look at the slide on the left, that's what we do. We have, whether you do it by car drive around, which is predominantly what we do, but that doesn't mean that we don't have staff get on the ground and walk around with that iPad and get that electronic reading from the meter. A lot of folks think that we still have to take the cap off and look down in the meter and read those numbers. I'm not saying we won't do that, because if something happens and we can't get a good reading off the computer, it may take that process to validate where we are. But predominantly we drive around, it pings against the computer, we cache that at a later time, and that's what creates that bill. Where we would like to go is advanced meter infrastructure, and that's about as easy as for anybody that's got an app to look at their bank statement or to look at their Amazon, the next package coming in to be delivered on the doorstep. It's continually updating. You can go to your phone, hit your app, and get that reading of your bill at that moment. I make it sound pretty easy. It's not quite that easy to build it, but once it's there, it is that easy to utilize that function. That's an extremely, I will say, expensive system, something that we would no doubt seek grants for as much as we could, and it's not easily built overnight. So when you see the recommendations going forward, it's going to say that, we'd like to kick this off in the next, within this fiscal year. If anybody has any experience in building these software platforms, as I've been through, it takes a long time just to make sure that you get the right platform, and it takes a long time to incorporate that platform and test that platform so that when it gets rolled out, it's working as soon as it gets out the door. So while we might be able to appropriate funding in fiscal year 23, the likelihood that it's going to be available July 1st is not realistic at all. And that really brings us to, I do have recommendations and requests, but that's on the next slide. So before I move to that slide, I would ask the board if you have any questions of me, or certainly my staff to the right.
No questions? You have a question? So, I do have questions.
Yes, sir.
So the EDUs, how did they originate? I mean, how was that, where did that system come from of EDUs?
So the EDU is a measure that MDE uses to determine potential capacity for a discharge or water withdrawal. So it allows them to allocate what an expected flow might be based on a certain residence or a business. So they can build conservation that protect the resources that are either going to be receiving the water in the discharge, or the water is going to be pulled out of an aquifer.
So does MDE have requirements that we have to, we were allowed so many EDUs? I mean, is that how they gauge our usage?
So the local jurisdiction establishes what an EDU quantity is going to be that they're going to distribute based on what they think the actual usage may be, and then that number is used to determine how much allocation they can have based on permitted discharge of water withdrawal.
So if we eliminate additional EDUs for usage, I'm just trying to figure out how that's going to affect us in our dealings with MDE. Will it have any impact on our MDE requirements, or?
What do you mean by eliminate?
So, if we're going to eliminate these additional EDUs based on water usage for residential homes, and they're going to start using, one EDU per residence, I think we still have to keep one per residence. Correct. If they're going to start using 50,000 gallons of water with only one EDU, how is that going to create any issue with us?
That's going to make it harder to track what our current allocation is compared to what our future allocation is, because part of our permits, we also have to maintain an inventory of what our future allocations may be. So if there's an exceedance on that EDU capacity, that'll kind of skew that number of what available allocation may be.
So then how are we going to, if we eliminate the requirement for additional EUs, how are we gonna transition that in the process with MDE?
Yep, so, one of the other things we do is we also track actual flows. So we would have to back into that number based on actual flow to figure out what our EDU allocation is compared to what our actual flows are.
Okay.
So, Commissioner, if I may add, James is absolutely correct, but, I mean, when you look at the bigger picture, I think it goes into maybe answering your question that safeguards the county, James's staff, to make sure that we are tracking not just the number of EDUs used and allocated, but also the quantity of water. So, right now, while 3216 allowed for, when you hit 120% of an EDU, which is 200 gallons, so 240 gallons, it would trip you into requiring another EDU. When we look at the big picture, so we have 4,818 residential users that have EDUs. The combined average of 4,818 is 0.58 of an EDU. So even though we're using only one, we're still well within the water capacity of what we're authorized. So we feel safe that we can use kind of a bi measure, a hybrid measure of that to make sure that if that number started inching up to one full EDU, it's more critical for James and his staff to make sure that we're good.
I'm just trying to look ahead. You know, I know what we want to do, but I don't want to come back 2 years from now and say, you know, we've created another problem that we got to fix.
The one thing I'd just like to add for the clarity piece, we will, the permit is the permit. We will still measure what is drawn by EDUs against that permit and also measure what is discharged by that permit. So we'll always know what that allocation is actually where it is. What will not be is the reallocation to the residents is what we're getting at. That's what we're looking for. So there's not that big, we'll say, sticker shock when they see their bill at the quarter time
Right.
comes up.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to get to.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Do you have a question, Commissioner Cox?
I just have a comment to go back to County Administrator Mark Willis. We've gotten a lot of phone calls on this, and we've been very transparent in what we have done, but there's many moving parts to this billing, to software, to meters, customer service, and I just want to put it out there to the citizens that we are not going to do this next week, next month, until we get it right. And this board is committed, Water and Sewer is committed, and we are committed to get it right before we start putting anything out. I just wanted to reemphasize.
Commissioners, that's fully understood. We need to work this internally to make sure that we understand, one, how to articulate, our responses back to you. If we can do that and it makes sense, then, I think we'll be ready. But you're right, it won't be in the next couple of weeks or maybe not even the next couple of months. We have to get it right first.
Mark, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The advanced metering infrastructure that we were talking about and the costs associated with it and the building of it, do we have any of the other jurisdictions within the county or surrounding jurisdictions that are already using that?
James, you might know that answer.
Yes, so it's predominantly used by the water industry. A lot of the smaller organizations aren't quite there yet. They're using AMR like we are. Majority of all the large organizations are using AMI. We talked about SMECO. SMECO uses AMI. That's how they read your meter at your house. So it's not a water industry specific thing. It's used across utilities as a whole.
And one of the questions we got was, if that's going to help, how long would it take us to implement that?
Yep. So we're currently talking with a vendor. It's 12 to 15 months before we're start to finish, fully in the ground, fully implemented. They're expecting around 12 months to be majority of our coverage area, and then just final punch list things after that.
And this process, this framework that we've already set up was already initiated before we went and did this assessment. So we're already in the process of actually getting ready to field this AMI. It's already in the works.
And so with that system, as Administrator Willis said, nobody even has to drive around. You only, I think I heard SMECO, every once in a while, they do go out and physically check to make sure that the readings are correct. So you'd be under the same system like, sort of, you do that now occasionally, right? You go out and double check.
Correct, yes. If we get an erroneous read or something doesn't look right, we'll go out and do a manual read similar to what SMECO does. Yes.
So you talk about a tiered bill. Can you basically, what that kind of looks like? You know, is it,
So up to a certain level of usage, it would be one rate for water and sewer. Then once you exceed that, there potentially would be a second tier that would be a higher per gallon usage cost. And then beyond that, a third tier that would be an additional per gallon usage charge.
so since others are doing that, if we want to move in that direction, we look at what the others are doing and try to base our structure on what they're doing?
Correct. Yes.
But we need to consult.
Yes, we've been working with a consultant who has done some work for us in the past to evaluate the surrounding areas and determine what would be best fit for us.
So people are confused that when they got the bill for EDUs, I think the description was it was another connection fee. So can you talk a little bit about, you know, right now they're paying a rate for their water and what that covers and what the money covers that comes from the charge for the EDUs?
So the money that comes from an EDU is used for capital projects and large maintenance projects to maintain the infrastructure. The money from the variable funds, so the variable revenue is used for our operating costs. So the funds allow us to operate the facilities, pay for chemicals, electricity, and minor repairs.
So right now, the rate that they're paying for the water covers what it costs you to pull it out of the ground, purify it, right?
Correct, treat it and
And the
discharge
EDU
it.
money is what you use to make the repairs to lines and.
Some of the larger repairs are the program repairs based on the condition of the infrastructure and the age, as well as similar to for our facilities, so for the water production plants and the wastewater treatment plants, those have finite ages and the equipment has finite time, so we have to have funding to support the recapitalization of those.
Because what's confusing is I think that I, along with them, assume that when you pay that connection fee, that would cover all that. So why is there another additional charge for a connection fee just because I use more water? I should have already paid for that. I think that's what's created a lot of confusion.
So as we're producing more water and treating more water, the cost goes up exponentially. So it costs us additional capital funds to be able to support increased production, right? And if we're not having that funding coming in, we can run into a shortage. We don't have funds available to do major upgrades or major overhauls of equipment and processes to support that.
So I'm glad you said that, because, so then that means we'll look at a tier when the time comes. But it sounds like in a tiered system, the more you're gonna pay more every time you use more. Because someone mentioned, well, if I use more, it should cost less, but that's not how this works.
No, because when we're having increased consumption, that additional funding is gonna have to, again, go back to support the additional water production and wastewater treatment.
So if we eliminate the extra EDUs, and the money that you would collect from those is used to install, we've got to balance that out somehow, because this fund, you know, as I've said to many people, it pays its own way. There's no taxpayer dollars, you know, if you're a customer in the system, it's self-sufficient.
Yes.
So how are you gonna capture the revenue to cover those costs?
Great. That's one of the things we're working with a consultant with, to look at how other jurisdictions are doing that, how they're able to support their capital program. And on most of the tier billing, there's also still a base rate. It looks like some of that base rate is feeding into that capital program to support that.
Right, because, you know, there's, and we haven't even talked about commercial, but we're gonna have to talk about that too. But trying to stick with residential, yeah, because, you know, people are concerned about what's gonna happen with their bills, even if we get rid of this purchase of additional EDUs. At the end of the day, the system has to fund itself. So they want to know, what's going to happen to my water bill. And I'd asked, and I don't need an answer today, but if we could compare ourselves to other systems, I don't know how you do that on like a per gallon basis or something, to make sure that we're operating in a range that's comparable, because this has raised a lot of concerns about, how we spend our money. And so if we can do some kind of a comparison to our neighbors about, cost of gallon of water, if that's a possibility, that may help us, or it may hurt us, but whatever it is, it is. We have to, be upfront about all this. We're not trying to hide anything. I've been accused of trying to drag this out. Why didn't we just fix it last Tuesday? There's a process that was gone through to create this system. We've got to go through that same process to make changes. You can't just make a motion today and be done, because we have to have something on the books to operate under. And if it takes, as Commissioner Cox says, if it takes weeks or a couple months, we're going to do that to make this right. And, we've notified people they don't have to buy the additional EDUs. I got a question about, was my rate going to go up? No, your rate's not going to change. Everything is on hold until we fix this. But we've got to fix it right. I don't want to put a bunch of Band-Aids on this thing and bleed to death in the end. It doesn't help our customers, it doesn't help us. But at the end of the day, we're going to take whatever time it takes, and these people don't owe the bill. Nobody paid for any additional use, right? Because somebody said, have you given them refunds yet? Nobody paid. It was a notice of a bill coming due. Nobody has paid a dime because of that, so there's no refunds that need to go out. Nobody's going to get their water cut off. Just want to make that perfectly clear.
Commissioner, back to the tiered process. Whatever process we use, currently, we use a rate model right now. So monies that come in are put in that rate model, and on the other end of that rate model has to be a number that actually supports the system. So when we come back, whether it's every year or every 2 years or whatever that may be, it's because the numbers that go in on the left side of the rate model have to equal enough of a positive revenue to operate this business, because that's what it is. It's a business, and it has to be operated in that fashion. So we can back off of a number, or we can increase a number in that rate model, and when they talk about working with a consultant, that's part of what we're going to do. If you change it to a rate model that says you're going to be charged $1 if you go over this 1,000 gallons, or $2 over that 1,000 gallons, it actually has to be put in the rate model with an assumption that X gallons are going to be used every quarter or every month, so that we can pay the bills at the end of that cycle. It's not an easy way to, it's not an easy process, but it is a process that we can use, and we know how to get there. But like everybody's saying, it's not overnight.
So, on your slide here, path forward, you're asking for authorization to prepare and present a new resolution. I think that's a given. I think that's why we're here today.
Yes, sir.
We're going to create a new resolution. I think the requiring of additional EDUs for residences, I think we all agree that needs to go. And if 18,000 gallons isn't the right number, then, we should look at what everybody else does and see where we are. Maybe 18,000 is the right number, I don't know, but at least if we look at others, it'll give us some guidance on if we're in the ballpark or if we're in the parking lot. I'm the only one doing any talking here, but there's 4 other people up here. Mark?
So I do have one more question. On the AMI system, is that just is that putting up another antenna on the towers, or is that just buying space on the towers, or is there any way we could get with SMECO and pull together and go with them on trying to get the cell towers linked together?
Yep, we're looking at all of the water and sewer owned towers, plus the additional county owned existing towers and structures that we can put the antennas on. And it looks like propagation study will have to be completed to look at what coverage is and what areas will fit. And there may be the need to install some other additional towers for the collection antennas to go on as well. So we're exploring all the options we can to look at how to best build the system out in the county.
We can piggyback as much as we can with another organization, that's what I was asking.
Some of that gets hard because it depends on what technology or what technology vendors used for that. So they're not cross-compatible. So if like Smeco's using one brand or one vendor to facilitate that, the one we use may not be compatible with theirs. Because it is, at the end of the day, a software program. Makes sense.
So, County Minister, you obviously have a pretty good handle, I think, of a lot that's broke here and what needs to be fixed and what you're gonna investigate. I mean, page 9, I think encapsulates a lot, and obviously, like I say, this is a work in progress. So are you looking for basically a consensus to kind of follow the guidelines on page 9, and then from there come back with some findings, and then from there, just, right now I can't really take a scalpel to it because we're still really in a fact-finding situation here. So would that, County Attorney, would that suffice a consensus to move forward basically with everything indicated on page 9?
Yes, that is the conclusion of the memo that's been provided as well.
So,
The caution is that ARPA funding is only a one-time deal. We can use that to fix something right now, but, if we're
maybe
looking
to help us
long-term-
purchase the software or what have you, or.
Right, that's correct. So even if we used ARPA money on software or a piece of infrastructure, it is a one-time use, and then what water and sewage would do anyway is to incorporate that next year and those future year costs in as we go forward. And again, all that impact, it may impact the rate structure based on what we're doing.
And I don't want to be out of school, and correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, I hate to oversimplify it, but if you could get in the Wayback Machine and the bill never went out, just to act like it never existed, and we're starting from scratch. I mean, if that kind of oversimplifies it, it's
Yes, sir.
unfortunate, it's our fault that it went out, but no one's going to get charged for those EDUs. The process isn't going to be followed the same way. So, if it puts anybody's mind at ease, to know that, just give us a chance to do it the right way. And it's unfortunate, but just basically, no one likes when I say this, throw that bill in the trash because it has no value. It's not going to be enforced. So it's unfortunate that it went out that way, and I don't want to overspeak, but I tried to oversimplify it, and I would be good with the consensus to go forward with what we have on page 9.
Mark,
Yes.
one thing
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would like to see is every month, I know we're going to be briefed, we will be made aware of how we are moving forward, what has been found, what's working, what isn't working. But I'd like to see a report at every meeting, every month, so the public can know at what point we are at in the process.
Will do, ma'am.
Okay.
Commercial.
You want to tackle that today?
Well, no, I'm just asking, you need to think about, if we're gonna hold a residence to one needing one EDU, I'm not sure that'll work with commercial, correct?
Oh,
Correct.
So, and maybe the resolution's fine, well, it's not gonna be fine for commercial based on,
I think that's going to be
So-
a deep dive.
yeah, so we've gotta figure that out, and I don't know how you do that in one resolution.
I don't think you can. I think you have to separate it out because you're going to get into a whole lot of, with the grease traps and in the sewer, and there's just so much more stuff that gets into that system, that it's just, I think it's just too much to try to stuff it in there. You have a commercial side and a residential side.
Gentlemen, that's when we said earlier that we're seeking guidance, but there's additional guidance that we'll seek as we start to develop this program for that residential side, but also to take a different look at the commercial side. And I will tell you, the biggest thing that we can do for the commercial side, and it's what we did along with James like 10 years ago, we were using WSSC numbers, and they were much larger. So for example, the way that WSSC would go into a restaurant and decide how many gallons that you should be charged for, that it would equal an EDU, is they would do it by the seat. So if you had 100 chairs in the restaurant, you would be charged 26 gallons per seat times 100. Divided by 200, that was your EDU requirement. That was WSSC based on their knowledge. What we did was over years, we had our own historical data. So we went back and looked at these, and we went from 26 gallons to, James, I think about 12 or 14. And there are other factors that go in there, but we were able to cut that almost in half. And of course, that really helped the the commercial side of the house. So we will look at that as well. We'll look at how we can reach out and provide better conservation information for them, because if they can conserve water, then they're cutting down on the quantity and maybe the number of just water use in general, but maybe the EDUs required. So do a on-site audit if that's what they want.
Well, and that's something that, it's because you don't want to get into potential and usage. And that's something that we fight all the time with the state. Well, you potentially could do this, and then you got the guy going, yeah, but I'm not. So that's why I say that commercial side's not going to be an easy, real quick motion and done. I mean, that's going to take really a reevaluation, because I know you were there at the time and you remember those nightmares of, hey, I got charged 10 EDUs, and how do I know anybody even walks in this place? So, you go, yeah, but potentially, you could use X amount. So that's, but I think that's a whole different discussion.
So unrelated to the resolution work, for those 300 individuals, you check their meters?
Yep, so we, currently we have, generated work orders to go all those locations, look at the meters, discuss with them, if we're seeing any leaks during our meter check, and things that they may be able to do to reduce their usage.
I think what they've been asking is to make sure their meter is accurate.
Correct.
But generally, as a rule, I think you told me when a meter fails, usually it fails the other way.
Yes,
and
it'll
it doesn't count water.
It stops reading water.
It doesn't overcount.
Correct.
So, but do you have enough guidance to put together a draft resolution?
Absolutely.
How much time do you need for that, do you think?
I think I'm going to have to get back with you.
I'm going to go with Commissioner Cox and say, we'll come back in a couple of months and let you know that we're on the verge of bringing something before you.
I think it goes to what Commissioner Grasso said, give you a monthly update and tell you where we are.
Yeah, because I don't want people to think, that we forgot.
Right, exactly.
Even though they don't have to pay the bills, we still need to make sure we fix this so it doesn't come back again. But I don't want to drag it out for a year either.
Right, understood, sir.
So the educational component of this could actually get started
Oh, yeah.
now.
We're already underway with that. We're working
Okay.
with CMR, and we're working with Water and Sewer and Economic Development.
And the bills, if we're going to change the look of the bills, we can do that now. We don't need a resolution for that, so.
It's a software, it's.
Right.
we're working on that.
But we're already in process. We're having a meeting, I think Thursday, to have a discussion about messages and information that we can put out to customers right now. So we're in the process of working that out.
Very good. Okay. All right. Well, we'll look forward to a draft.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank
all.
you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day. So that brings us to public comment. Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you, sir. The board adopted resolution in 1989 intending to maintain the order and decorum of the governmental process. A copy is found here to my right. The Ethics Commission has asked us that we remind speakers of public comment that lobbyists include those who seek to influence public policy, and lobbyists must register in advance. Floor has been open for public comment from persons in the meeting room who may begin making their way to the microphone, then those joining us virtually. All speakers must identify themselves and whether speaking as an individual where you'll be allocated 2 minutes or as the designated representative of a group where you'll be allocated 5 minutes. For those attending virtually, please press *9 if you wish to speak, and we will identify you by your phone number, the last 4 digits of your phone number. Please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Cormier, and I live in Owings, Maryland. And I'm here today representing myself as a parent volunteer. As a disclaimer, I am the chairperson of Calvert CCAC, the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee, a part-time employee of Calvert County Public Schools, and a member of CASE, the Calvert Association of Educational Support Staff. But my thoughts and views are my own. Today, you received a presentation from Calvert's Blueprint Coordinator, Dr. Joseph Sampson. I believe in the blueprint. Is it perfect? No, but we can't let perfect be the barrier to good. Just like an IEP, it's meant to be a living document to be followed, assessed, and adapted as needed. As Dr. Townsend likes to say, you set the bar, you meet the bar, you raise the bar, you meet the bar. When I was a substitute teacher, a position almost criminally underpaid for how critical it is, one of the first lessons I was given was a 7th grade English class, The Miracle Worker, which is the story of Helen Keller and her teacher, Ann Sullivan. There's a scene in that book where Ann sits down after a long day and reads this passage. This blind, deaf, mute child, can nothing be done to disinter her human soul. The whole neighborhood would rush to save this girl if she was buried alive in a cave in a pit and labor with zeal until she's dug out. The blueprint is the framework to help dig our children and bring them up to the light. I think the difficulty is the pit isn't something we can physically see. I noticed when I came in today, your sidewalks were wheelchair accessible. We had Braille on the elevator. These aren't things that just magically happened. The Americans with Disability Act found these barriers and found a way for us to get through them. Now we have to deal with things like autism, dyslexia, dysgraphia, executive functioning deficits, ADHD, just a few examples of challenges facing our children in schools. On top of that, you had food insecurity, housing insecurity, trauma, and violence in the home. These things can't be turned off like a light switch, especially for children who don't have the skills in their emotional toolbox. I hope that you will continue to support the blueprint, and we can't treat it like a seed planted in the ground that we're going to harvest in 6 months. We have to treat it like an orchard that we're going to pick an apple in 10 years. Mr. Hart, you brought up a good point today. School shouldn't be pay to play. We shouldn't make kids pay to get into preschool. We shouldn't be making kids pay for breakfast and lunch. They should just be able to get fed. We don't know what's going on in the home. Yes, we have free and reduced programs for schools, but we don't know what's going on in those homes on that particular day. So thank you so much for your support of education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room? Okay, we have caller 7771. You may press *6 to unmute yourself. Please identify yourself and whether speaking as an individual or the designated representative of a group.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. This is Warren Mart. I'm speaking as a resident of Huntingtown. Just wanted to put a couple of thoughts out on resolution number 3216. When you talk about monthly billing versus quarterly billing, I just want to throw out a couple things of caution. Seems to me that would be more time intensive. You're looking at 12 bills versus 4. Additional cost, billing processing, looks like about 3 times as much. And I just don't want that additional cost passed on to the customer. So please give some consideration to that when you're rethinking this 3216. The other is the tariff billing. I'm somewhat concerned about that. Realize we're on the rate model used presently. What my concern is that the first so many thousand gallons of water that you use is at that rate, and the rest should be just the same cost as it was to produce the first. I don't understand outside of just additional chemicals could be processed into the base rate. So the customer using more water is already paying more as they use more gallons of water, so why raise the rate higher on a tiered system? Seems to me like it could be part of gouging. So please rethink that, Commissioners, and I know you have a tough job to do. We're all with you on this. We've got to get it right, as someone said before. Again, thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, that's the last speaker.
Well, that brings us down to Commissioner reports. Commissioner Cox.
Attended Dr. Martin Luther King celebration. Went to 2 farmers markets out of the state. Had a good time there. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Arlen.
Thursday the 12th, attended the swearing in of Lisa Grinnis, Janet Post, and the Board of Education meeting. Congratulations to both of them. Saturday the 14th, ribbon cutting at Whimsy's Boutique in North Beach. 3 Generations opened a boutique. They were presented with a certificate signed by all 5 commissioners. Also attended Bethel Way of the Cross Church for tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King. It was well attended. There were several
attended Dr. Martin Luther King.
We have some
Several.
technical difficulties.
There were several local pastors there that preached, and like I said, it was very well attended. On the 21st, I attended the Farm Bureau's Coffee and Conversation event, Where's Memorial Church. Carrie Atkins, Travis Mister from the Career and Technology Academy were there, talked about the new CASE curriculum being added to CTA. CASE stands for Curriculum for Agricultural Science Education. It's a 2-year program that includes topics such as wildlife biology, environmental engineering, agriculture and horticulture, pest control services, conservation and natural resources, and veterinary. Students in that program earn college credit, again, another addition to CTA, and Mr. Raley also gave an update on several bills of interest in Annapolis to the Farm Bureau during this session. Monday the 23rd, attended my first meeting with CASA last night. They're having a fundraiser on Saturday, April 15th. It is the Comedy Invasion for Project Graduation. The event's being held at Huntingtown High School Auditorium. Tickets are $35 in advance, $45 at the door, $25 for students. And they're hosting 3 of the East Coast most outstanding comics. And one more thing was January 21st was Jackie Vaughn's retirement celebration at the fairgrounds. That was well attended also.
Thank you. Commissioner Grasso?
I attended the Board of Education swearing in the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration at Bethel Church. As well, I attended a meeting with Friends of Hunting Creek, and I had my very first MACO meeting on Wednesday.
Good. Commissioner Hart?
I just want to say congratulations again to Brett Schranko. I attended his Eagle Scout Award, and once again, every time someone achieves a rank like that, it's not easily done. So just want to say congratulations again, and that's all I have, Mr. President.
Good. So I attended most of that stuff, but I also attended on Sunday an Eagle Scout ceremony at Trinity Church for 5 young men, and I forgot the program. I can't mention their names, but as Commissioner Hart says, that's quite an achievement for a young man before he's 18 years old, and sets them on a pretty good course for their lives. So it's very important to get your children involved in 4-H or Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or something, and it will help them tremendously. I always tell those young men, and young ladies, I'm not sure they fully understand what they've done in this accomplishment and how it will help them the rest of their lives. But they will look back throughout their lives and talk about the things they did in those programs that have helped them throughout. So I always encourage, get your kids involved in something, sports, scouts, 4-H, whatever it is, to get them out and going. There was something else, but it has slipped my mind. I should have written it down. Commissioner Hart. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just double checking.
He's new.
I know.
Getting
Just
broke in.
checking with the boss. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to move to recess to executive session pursuant to General Provisions, Article Section 3-305B, 1I, B1, II, B3, and B8 to discuss the employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, or resignation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, to discuss another personal matter that affects one or more specific individuals, to discuss the acquisition of property for a public purpose and related matters, and to consult with staff about potential litigation.
We're going to be busy. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Everyone have a great day.
Thank